Chapter 1. September 12, 1998. Country M, City F. The weather in September was unusually hot and humid. It started drizzling in the evening, and it started pouring in the wee hours of the morning, accompanied by thunder and lightning. Amidst the wind and rain, a red flagship limited edition Ferrari, LaFerrari sports car, shuttled through the rain, splashing puddles everywhere it passed. Screech! The Ferrari made a turn and drove into an empty space. It made half a turn on the spot and slammed on the brakes. The red sports car stopped like a flash of light. Walala! The rain became heavier and heavier. A black Audi was parked opposite the Ferrari sports car. The man in the Audi extinguished the cigarette in his hand, blew a puff of smoke and got out of the car. At the same time, the door of the Ferrari sports car opened, revealing a pair of flat-soled feet. The person who got out of the car was a girl who looked like she was in her teens. The man was stunned for 2 seconds before he smirked. I didn't expect the king of secret agents in the international rankings, the boss of the strongest kosher mercenaries, to be a little girl who's still wet behind the ears. To the middle-aged man, the girl opposite him was just a child. "Where's my brother?" The girl ignored the man's words and went straight to the point. "Huh!" The man sneered when he heard that. He then flashed a sinister smile and his expression changed instantly. "Then where's the thing I want?" If he did not have something on her, the man would never have dared to speak to the girl in such a tone. She might be young. She was already a legend in the mercenary world and the king of secret agents in her teens. This girl was definitely not as weak as she looked. The girl raised her hand gently and an ancient wooden box appeared in her hand. With a swing, the box flew to the man. This box had a very nice name. It was called Sandalwood Box. However, she did not know why this small box would attract the attention of all the international leaders. Even the old fellows on the assassin ranking who had been living in seclusion for many years came out to fight for it. "Fulfill your promise and let my brother go," she sneered. She was not an orphan and had a brother whom she had only met once. It was then that she knew she had a Chinese name. Yun Jian. Before she was 16, she had been using a code name, Slaying God. Yun Jian grew up in the organization. She started her career at the age of 12 and killed the previous boss of the kosher mercenaries at the age of 14. At such a young age, she was already known internationally as the king of secret agents. He was also the boss of the kosher mercenaries. It was not until recently that she found out that she had an 8-year-old brother. They had only met once, and her brother had been captured by the man codenamed Wolf Killer in front of her to threaten her. Yun Jian, who had been alone for 16 years, longed for kinship. Ha! At the same time, Wolf Kill sneered and put the sandalwood box into his arms. He strode to the front of the Audi, opened the door, took out a bloody bag, and threw it on the ground. The bundle rolled twice on the ground, leaving a trail of blood wherever it passed. Finally, the cloth that wrapped the bundle also fell to the ground. Then, the horrifying thing inside was revealed. It was the head of an 8-year-old boy. There was no body. The boy's eyes were wide open, and there were traces of dried tears at the corner of his eyes. There was no body below his neck, and the blood had dried up. It looked extremely strange. Chapter 2. That was her biological brother whom she had only met once. "You killed him." Yun Jian clenched her fists and glared at Wolf. Kill as grief and indignation exploded from the bottom of her heart. She had risked her life to get the sandalwood box in order to save her only family in this world. Now, everything had turned into nothingness. "Haha, Slaying God. You're still too inexperienced." Lang Sha, who had obtained the sandalwood box, was no longer afraid of Yun Jian as if he had a trump card. How could Yun Jian, who was smart, not see through his intentions? Initially, Lang Sha was afraid of her. However, after obtaining the sandalwood box, he even dared to provoke her. "Then pay with your life." Yun Jian took out a scimitar from the side of her thigh after hearing Lang Sha's words. She held it in her palm and dashed toward Lang Sha. "Kill him." Yun Jian's nerves were roaring and boiling. It was these people who had forced her to embark on this path of murder. Step by step, they had forced her to become stronger and the strongest. However, in the end, she could not even protect her family. From afar, Lang Sha held the sandalwood box and sneered at Yun Jian who was dashing toward him. With the sandalwood box in hand, would he be afraid of a mere slaying god? However, Lang Sha dared not let his guard down. Slaying God was not just a title for show. Slaying was the blood of one's desire to become a god. Slaying God, that was a title that she had earned by trampling on countless lives. Yun Jian was getting closer. When she was a meter away from him, Lang Sha sneered and opened the sandalwood box. With the sandalwood box in hand, who cares about slaying God? She's just a thing of the past. Lang Sha grinned, waiting for Yun Jian to explode in front of him. Poof! Light shone the moment the sandalwood box was opened. Poof! 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 How could this be? How could this be? Lang Sha's eyes widened. He lowered his head and saw the scimitar that had pierced his heart. Stab! 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 His ferocious face was extremely terrifying. As for his body, it was already slowly falling backwards. Even at the moment of his death, he still did not understand why he had lost to a teenage girl. Yun Jian kicked the dead man's abdomen and bent down to pick up the sandalwood box that had slipped from the man's hand to the ground. This sandalwood box was just an imitation made with the most advanced technology, and the light that had just been reflected was just a flashlight in the box. So what if he killed Lang Sha? Yun Jian blamed herself. Why didn't she keep an eye on her brother? But who would have thought that these people would point their spears at an 8-year-old boy? His goal was to control her. Yun Jian took out an exquisite wooden box from the car and placed it in her hand to compare it with another wooden box. This was the real sandalwood box. But what was the use? Could she bring her brother back? The reason why Lang Sha was defeated by her was because he knew that she wouldn't abandon her only family. But he didn't expect that when he schemed against her, she could also scheme against him. A small sandalwood box had attracted countless killers to fight over it. Just based on this point, would she really hand over the sandalwood box with both hands? If handing over the sandalwood box could exchange for her cute brother, then Yun Jian would not hesitate. But Lang Sha actually killed her brother like this. It was her fault. Yun Jian's body trembled slightly. A drop of cold tear flowed down from her left cheek. Silently, without Yun Jian noticing, it dripped into the sandalwood box in her hand. Whoosh! In an instant, the sandalwood box emitted a dazzling light that enveloped the open space. Yun Jian's head sank and she completely fainted. The heavy rain was still pouring down, and the thunder was still roaring. Chapter 3. Xinjiang Town, Longmen City, Country Z. It was the start of September school season. In the girls' washroom of Xinjiang Town Junior High School's teaching block during class break. Her head was dizzy and her body swayed as if she was being dragged somewhere. Before Yun Jian's subconscious had fully awakened, a few sharp female voices rang in her ears. This little B*TCH actually fainted. Sister Lin, what should we do now? How dare this B*TCH steal my man? She must be F*King tired of living. She won't learn her lesson if I don't teach her a lesson. Both of you, push her head into the toilet ditch. Let her eat *T. Let's see if she dares to do it again. Hurry up, I'll take responsibility if anything happens. Steal her man? Toilet ditch? Yun Jian slowly regained consciousness and reacted in the next second. Both her hands were pulled behind her back and a small hand was covering her head. Her eyes happened to catch sight of feces under the toilet ditch. The stench of feces wafted from the bottom of the toilet ditch. The hand that was pressing down on her head was about to push her head into the toilet drain. Yun Jian did not have time to think about where she was. Her hands buckled reflexively and she broke free from the person who held her hands as fast as she could. At the same time, her feet did not relax as she hooked back lightly and kicked the two people behind her to the ground. Her movements were swift and violent. Ah! The two girls' soft cries came from behind. Yun Jian had already jumped a few meters away from the toilet ditch and had a clear view of the situation before her. Where was she? Who were the 15-year-old girl in front of her and the two girls she had just kicked to the ground? Yun Jian. The 15 to 16-year-old girl with heavy makeup who stood in front of her was shocked when she saw Yun Jian's strange movements and the way she broke free from the two girls who were on the ground. She could not help gritting her teeth and growling in anger. You're calling me? Yun Jian asked in surprise. This girl actually knew that her name was Yun Jian? She had never mentioned the name Yun Jian to anyone. As an ace agent, she had always used the codename Slaying God to announce to the public. On the contrary, she had only known the name Yun Jian not long ago, so outsiders would not know about it. What? Aren't you Yun Jian? Why are you pretending? Are you still pretending to have amnesia? Do you think the school hunk will take a few more glances at you? Let me tell you. The school hunk is Sister Lin's boyfriend. Don't even think about it. One of the girls who was kicked to the ground by Yun Jian was slapped on the ground was Yun Jian's, glaring at Yun Jian. Yun Jian's name, Yun Jian's, and Yun Jian's, Yun's. Once Yun Jian heard it, she felt that something was off about this place. They were strangers in a strange place, and they had no grudges against her. Why were they so hostile toward her? When she thought of this, she suddenly reached out and touched her face and facial features. She could determine a person's appearance by touching their facial features. Clearly, this was not her face. What was going on here? She only remembered that she had returned to the car to take out the sandalwood box after killing Lang Sha. There was a flash of white light and she had fainted. Had she entered someone else's body? Yun Jian, who was standing at the front, was annoyed when she saw the state Yun Jian was in. How dare this little b***tch ignore her? She was dazed for a moment, then laughed at Yun Jian. Yun Jian, are you lonely? How dare you touch your own face in front of everyone? Are you that desperate for a man's love? How dare you seduce my man? You're courting death. Lin Mengyu suddenly remembered something when she said the last sentence. She glared at Yun Jian fiercely again, then turned to instruct the other two girls. Chapter 4. Lin Mengyu glared viciously at Yun Jian. She looked as if she wanted to tear Yun Jian into pieces. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and raised her eyebrows. She watched as the two girls who had obeyed Lin Mengyu approached her. She was not flustered. Although she did not know why she was here, or why she had entered another girl's body. However, the three girls in front of her did not pose a threat to her. Although she did not know the situation, she, Yun Jian, was not someone to be bullied. She was the top secret agent in the world. The number of people who had died in her hands could form a long street. Although the girls in front of her were about the same age as her, she knew that they were probably delicate girls who would be afraid even if they saw a dead person. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. It was faint but it sent chills down one's spine. The two girls who were approaching her were stunned and stopped in their tracks. What are you waiting for? Come on, you two. Stop dilly-dallying. Are you waiting for the food to be served? Lin Mengyu shouted at the two girls. Do you know? Yun Jian suddenly continued Lin Mengyu's words and said. Lin Mengyu was stunned when she heard that. What? No what? Was this little b***tch stupid? She had just pretended to have amnesia, and now she was keeping her in suspense? Even so, she would not let this little b***tch off today. Don't even think about it. Those who want to attack me, I will usually. Yun Jian finished her sentence and moved in the next second. In a flash, she appeared behind Lin Mengyu and the other two girls in the blink of an eye. Yun Jian reached out her hand and bent it like an eagle's claw. In the next moment, she was already strangling Lin Mengyu's neck. Yun Jian, who was already standing behind Lin Mengyu, blew at Lin Mengyu and continued, like this, break her neck. At the same time, she tightened her grip. At this moment, Lin Mengyu and the other two girls finally reacted. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian, who was just 1 or 2 meters away, had already run behind Lin Mengyu. Lin Mengyu could not help but shudder out of reflex. Did Yun Jian take the wrong medicine? However, how could someone who was originally as timid and weak as a slug become a different person after being knocked unconscious for a while? Lin Mengyu was being threatened by Yun Jian, and she was naturally furious. She was not a patient, and was about to retaliate, but she suddenly realized that she could not speak. With her neck with Yun Jian seemed to be choked by something, and she could not say anything. At this moment, Lin Mengyu started to panic. However, she did not know that her neck was being choked. If Yun Jian increased the strength of her grip, then her neck would really be twisted off. Killing, in Yun Jian's previous world, was as simple as eating and sleeping. However, because she did not know where she was, Yun Jian did not kill her ruthlessly. She did not know if there was an ambush around. Otherwise, Lin Mengyu would have become a cold corpse by now. Just as Lin Mengyu's breathing gradually became heavier and she was about to suffocate, Yun Jian suddenly let go of her grip. But just as Lin Mengyu heaved a sigh of relief, she kicked Lin Mengyu hard and she fell to the ground. Lin Mengyu screamed, and the other two girls quickly went to help her. Looking at the three people in front of her, Yun Jian said softly, "I have never been a good-tempered person. Just now, you wanted to push my head into the cesspool. Now, I will give you two choices. 1. Jump into the cesspool yourselves, or I will kill you now." Chapter 5. Cough, cough, cough. Lin Mingyu, who was freed, took a few deep breaths and coughed a few times. Then, she stared at Yun Jian and ignored Yun Jian's harsh words. She was a little scared but pretended to be strong. "Yun Jian, you dare to threaten me. You dare to hit me. Do you know who my father is? My father is the principal of our school. I want you to apologize to me right now. Otherwise, you don't have to attend this school anymore. I'll go look for my father now and ask him to expel you." Lin Mingyu dared to hit Yun Jian in school because her father was Xinjiang Town Junior High School's principal. Actually, even if Yun Jian apologized to Lin Mingyu obediently, Lin Mingyu would not let her off so easily. However, the current Yun Jian was no longer the cowardly slut she used to be. Apologizing for no reason was a word that had never appeared in Yun Jian's dictionary. Yun Jian flashed an odd smile as she inched closer to Lin Mingyu and the other two girls. You, what do you want to do?" Once they recalled Yun Jian's strange moves, Lin Mingyu and the other two were a little scared. They took a few steps back and asked in unison. Yun Jian was already standing in front of the three. She stopped smiling and spat out 3 words that were enough to make Lin Mingyu and the other two flabbergasted. "Kill you." Since the 3 of them were so stubborn, then there was no need for them to live in this world. Moreover, Lin Mingyu had ordered the other 2 girls to frame her. She had already given them a chance, but they did not want it. Instantly, a murderous aura emanated from Yun Jian's body. Lin Mingyu and the other 2 were forced into a corner by Yun Jian's aura. They did not dare to say a word and could only tremble uncontrollably. "Teacher, it's here." My friend Yun Jian was caught in the toilet by them. Just as Yun Jian was about to kill the 3 of them, an anxious and determined female voice came from outside the toilet. Yun Jian frowned and turned around to look. He saw a girl about 15 or 16 years old walk in from outside the toilet, followed by 2 female teachers. The girl who came in first looked delicate and pretty. She was petite and cute, but her face was filled with worry. However, when she saw this face, Yun Jian's mind suddenly went blank. She took 2 steps back and steadied herself. At this moment, a cluster of memories that clearly did not belong to him was forcefully stuffed into his head in the next second. What was going on? "Xiao Jian, what's wrong with you?" When the petite girl saw Yun Jian take a step back and wobble as if she was about to fall, she was so frightened that she immediately ran over to support her. Yun Jian closed her eyes for 3 seconds. When she opened them again, countless images flashed through her mind. She had been reborn. It seemed that her guess was right. She had really entered another girl's body. For some reason, the cluster of memories just now suddenly appeared in her head. She had accepted all the memories of this girl. The original owner of this body that she had possessed was also called Yun Jian. The original owner, Yun Jian, was an ordinary 3rd-year middle school girl in Xinjiang Town High School. She came from an ordinary background and everything about her could have been ordinary, but she had an exquisite and beautiful face. Although it was not seductive or playful, this body had delicate features and gave off an exquisite beauty. Everything that had happened was because of her beautiful face. The school hunk of Xinjiang Town High School was called Yuan Ingjun. Yuan Ingjun and Lin Mingyu had always been a couple. It was known throughout the school and they were even known as a handsome man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. But who would have thought that Yuan Ingjun would change his mind every now and then? He actually had designs on the original owner and even started to pester her. In spite of it, the original owner had always wanted to stay as far away from him as possible. As Yuan Ingjun's official girlfriend, Lin Mingyu refused, insisting that it was the original owner who had seduced Yuan Ingjun. As a matter of fact, she had dragged the original owner to the washroom during class today and called her sidekick, saying that she was going to teach the original owner a lesson. Who would have thought that after being beaten up, the original owner would take her last breath? Forced by life, she had suffered enough humiliation. She didn't even have the slightest desire to live, so she gave up and went back. Therefore, for some reason, she, slaying God, the king of secret agents and the legend of mercenaries, had been reborn into the original owner's body and became her. Chapter 6. I'm fine. Yun Jian looked up at the girl who rushed over to help her and gave her an answer. This girl was called Lu Fian and was a very good friend of the original host. When the original host was caught by the three of them and beaten up in the toilet, Lu Fian knew that she didn't have the ability to stop this, so she immediately ran to call the teacher over. But she was too late. The original host was already dead and the person who replaced her was Yun Jian. She was already tired of being a secret agent in her previous life and wanted to leave the organization, leave the world of assassins and secret agents and live a normal life with her brother. But who would have thought that her brother would be killed and she would encounter such a strange thing like rebirth? But now that she came to this body, she could finally leave the organization of her previous life. Yun Jian gladly accepted this result. But her brother's death was not over. She wanted to retire, but who knew that those people in her previous life would go crazy and take her brother as a hostage and kill him. Although Langsha was killed by her, Yun Jian knew that there must be someone controlling him. She, Yun Jian, would definitely take revenge. What's going on? One of the two teachers who were called over by Lu Fian just now, who looked younger, called out to Yun Jian authoritatively. This teacher's surname was Wang and she was a new teacher who had just graduated from university and was assigned to Xinjiang Town High School. But she also knew that Lin Mingyu was the daughter of Xinjiang Town High School's principal and couldn't be offended. Usually, when Lin Mingyu committed crimes in school, these teachers would turn a blind eye. Although teacher Wang was young, she was a person with foresight. She didn't shout at Lin Mingyu because she was afraid of offending Lin Mingyu and indirectly offending the principal. As a new teacher who had just been assigned a job, teacher Wang didn't dare offend the principal. On the contrary, Yun Jian and Lu Fian were normal villagers in her eyes. They had no power or influence and their parents relied on working and farming to support their family. With this comparison, it was clear who was more important. Teacher, it was Lin Mingyu and the other two who forcefully dragged my friend into the washroom. They even said that they would teach her a lesson. Before Yun Jian could say anything, Lu Fian explained to Mr. Wang. Mr. Wang wasn't the teacher who taught Lu Fian and Yun Jian's class. At that time, Lu Fian was afraid that Lin Mingyu and the others would bully Yun Jian if he came late. Therefore, Lu Fian immediately called him over when she saw him and didn't have time to explain. Lu Fian said this because she wanted teacher Wang to stand up for Yun Jian. Teacher Wang sized up Yun Jian. Seeing Yun Jian's shabby clothes, she knew that she was a poor girl from the countryside. Hence, she looked at Yun Jian with contempt and said to Lu Fian, as a junior high school student, she should act like a student. If your friend doesn't cause trouble, do you think Lin Mingyu will bully your friend? With these few words, Mr. Wang was obviously on Lin Mingyu's side. Furthermore, he was completely biased towards her. Lu Fian was stunned and her heart suddenly turned cold. But teacher, it was Lin Mingyu who bullied my friend first. According to the school rules, shouldn't she be punished? Lu Fian was unconvinced and retorted to Mr. Wang. All right. Look at your friend. She's not missing an arm or a leg. Let's leave it at that. Go back and prepare for class. The more experienced teacher standing beside Mr. Wang saw this and hurriedly said to Lu Fian. At that moment, Lin Mingyu, who had someone to rely on, raised her head arrogantly and looked at Lu Fian and Yun Jian with a mocking gaze. Little b*****, humph, this isn't over yet. Now that even the teacher isn't helping you, let's see what you bunch of poor people can do. Seeing this, Lu Fian's anger flared up. Were these teachers blind? It was completely unreasonable, but they were helping Lin Mingyu. She's not missing an arm or a leg. Yun Jian had been standing at the side and listening until she heard this sentence. She laughed coldly. Indeed, this body wasn't missing any arms or legs, but when the original owner was still here, he was beaten unconscious. He even held his breath and passed away. As long as she's not missing an arm or a leg, she won't be punished by the school? Yun Jian stood in the same spot and listened to the incessant chatter in front of her. Then she suddenly opened her mouth and said this. Everyone present was stunned. What did she mean? Yun Jian suddenly chuckled. She hooked her finger and suddenly pointed at Lin Mingyu. She didn't make me lose an arm or a leg. Then I won't hold it against her. Ms. Wang looked like she breathed a sigh of relief when she heard that. She looked at Yun Jian, thinking that the girl had finally understood. It's good that you understand. Mr. Wang deliberately praised Yun Jian hypocritically. But in her heart, she was thinking, how could a child from a poor family compare to the daughter of the principal? But in the next second, Mr. Wang immediately realized that she had misunderstood Yun Jian's meaning. In the next second, Yun Jian suddenly moved. She took 2 steps towards Lin Mingyu and in a flash, she appeared beside Lin Mingyu at a speed that no one could catch with the naked eye. Raising her leg, Yun Jian used her knee to fiercely hit Lin Mingyu's abdomen. Gotcha! The bones in her abdomen broke. Then Lin Mingyu screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Ah! Lin Mingyu suddenly curled up due to the pain and rolled on the ground as she howled. But what shocked everyone was Yun Jian's strange technique and nimble speed. When Lu Fian and the 2 girls beside Lin Mingyu saw this, they instantly stared at Yun Jian in shock. Chapter 7. The sound of bones breaking in Lin Mingyu's abdomen sent chills down everyone's spine. Yun Jian had used her knee to break Lin Mingyu's abdomen. What kind of strength was that? Was that the strength of a normal person? Moreover, breaking the bones in the abdomen was no child's play. That would be life-threatening. The abdomen was where the internal organs were located. If the bones in the abdomen were broken, it would pierce through the internal organs and cause bleeding. The person's life would be in danger. Ms. Wang and the other older teacher had some common sense. When they saw the situation, their faces turned pale with fright. If something really happened to Lin Mingyu here, they would not have an easy time. Student Yun Jian, right? You actually injured someone just now. You even injured a classmate. Because of this, you will receive the most severe punishment from the school. Ms. Wang was a little flustered and scared. She hated Yun Jian again, so she spoke harshly to Yun Jian. The other older teacher was more or less more experienced than Ms. Wang. Since the incident had already happened, the teacher immediately gave the order and ran out to call for people to carry Lin Mingyu to the hospital. Lin Mingyu was already rolling on the ground in pain, unable to say a word. If they waited any longer, she would die. If they did not send her to the hospital, she would really be in trouble. She didn't cause me to lose an arm or a leg, so she won't be punished by the school. I didn't cause her to lose an arm or a leg, so I won't be punished by the school either. She had hit Lin Mingyu's abdomen. Lin Mingyu's arms and legs were still fine. Yun Jian crossed her arms calmly and looked at Ms. Wang as she spoke. She had already been very gentle and controlled her strength. Lin Mingyu would at most be in pain for a while before recovering. Her life would not be in danger. You just wait for the school to punish you. Ms. Wang's mouth was shut by Yun Jian's words and she was furious. Not long after, another teacher called over a few male teachers who were more muscular. They worked together to lift Lin Mingyu up and carefully sent her to the hospital not far away from Xinjiang town. The other teachers and Lin Mingyu's 2 female followers went with them, looking panicked, worried that something would happen to Lin Mingyu. Soon, only Yun Jian and Lu Fian were left in the washroom. Xiao Jian, you injured Lin Mingyu just now. She's the daughter of our school's principal. If anything happens to her, the principal won't let you off the hook. What if he expels you? Lu Fian was also a little scared. After all, she was just an ordinary student. When she saw the scene just now, she was naturally frightened. If children from the countryside could not continue to go to school, they could only go home and work in the fields. For the villagers, this meant that they had no way out for the rest of their lives. In this lifetime, he could forget about leaving the countryside to live in a big city. Simply, they were good-for-nothings. Yun Jian shrugged. She had controlled her strength just now, so Lin Mingyu would only feel a little pain at most before she recovered. In fact, if Ms. Wang had not spoken so harshly, Yun Jian would not have minded reconnecting Lin Mingyu's abdomen. It seemed like there was no need for that now. She'll be fine. Yun Jian's lips quirked up. In spite of it, Lin Mingyu was the direct murderer of the original owner of her body. She was already letting her off easy by not taking her life just now. After all, the original owner of her body paid with her life. A young girl at the prime of her youth was killed by Lin Mingyu just like that. Ring, ring, ring. Just as Lu Fian was about to say something, the bell rang to signal the start of class. Let's go to class, Yun Jian said. She had injured Lin Mingyu just now. If it had been a normal girl who had hurt her classmate, she would probably have been scared out of her wits. Instead, she told Lu Fian nonchalantly and headed to the classroom after exiting the washroom. Lu Fian was stunned. Why did it seem like she was more worried than Xiao Jian? What should she do if something really happened to Lin Mingyu? In the next second, Lu Fian ran to the classroom as well. Yun Jian, who was walking in front, curled her lips into an expectant smile. What kind of place would a school be like? She had been taken away by an organization when she was young in her past life and had gone through brutal training. She had lived a life of killing or being on guard against being killed for more than a decade. She had never gone to school and had never experienced the life of a normal person. Chapter 8. When Yun Jian and Lu Fian arrived at the door, Yun Jian saw a class sign hanging on the wall next to the door. On it was written in red block letters, Grade 3, 6, Class. Yun Jian suddenly realized that she was just an ordinary student who had just entered her third year of middle school. Pursing her lips, raising her eyebrows, and nodding with a smile, Yun Jian stepped into the classroom. Her seat was in the third seat in the third row. Because the original owner wasn't very tall, but she wasn't short either. She was in the middle of the class, so her seat was in the middle. Instead, he sat in the best position. Lu Fian's seat was a bit far from hers. Because class had already started, Lu Fian didn't say anything and ran to her seat first. Yun Jian took her seat as well. Just as they sat down, a slightly plump female teacher came in through the door. This teacher's surname was Jean. Teacher Jean was already in her 30s. She took good care of her appearance, so she looked a few years younger than her real age. Teacher Jean was usually very kind. She was the teacher in charge of grade 3, 6. She taught Chinese and was quite humorous in class. She would also tell stories to the students, so the students in the class liked her class. After Teacher Jean came in, she put her lesson book on the podium and took out her Chinese textbook to start class. After an entire afternoon of class, Yun Jian didn't get tired. In fact, she had already learned these lessons. In her previous life, she was in an organization and had to be proficient in everything. She had to learn all the lessons in a short period of time. Otherwise she would be eliminated in that world. However, during class, Yun Jian still listened attentively. She only enjoyed the process. At 16:50 in the afternoon, school ended on time. Because today was Friday, there was no evening self-study, so school ended early. Usually, there would be evening self-study from the weekend to Thursday. So after the evening self-study, school ended around 8 in the evening. When school ended, the bell rang. Before Teacher Jean could announce the end of class, a few naughty boys in the class took their bags and sneaked out the back door. The teacher had a headache over these naughty students, but there was nothing she could do. After the head teacher left, the students picked up their school bags and ran back home. Friday after school was the happiest time of the week. Xiao Jian, wait for me. Let's go together. Lu Fian packed her bag hastily after class and called out to Yun Jian. Yun Jian didn't respond, but she waited for Lu Fian. Lu Fian was a very good friend of the original host. She wasn't a bad person. At least when she saw the original host being bullied, she would think of ways to help the original host. She didn't alienate her because she was afraid of offending Lin Mingyu. Lu Fian quickly packed her bag and ran over. She said excitedly to Yun Jian, "Let's go." "Okay," she replied softly. Yun Jian nodded and walked towards the school gate with Lu Fian. The two of them walked side by side and soon exited the school gate. Xinjiang Town Middle School was located in the center of Xinjiang Town. Yun Jian's house and Lu Fian's house happened to be in the same direction, so they were going in the same direction. Just as they stepped out of the school gate, Yun Jian heard a loud male voice from the side. "Xiao Jian." Slightly surprised, Yun Jian turned to look and saw a young man about 17 or 18 years old standing on the steps of the school gate, looking at her. He was dressed in a tracksuit and had a slender build. When Yun Jian saw the handsome young man, she was stunned at first before the memories of the original owner of her body flooded her mind. The young man was none other than the original host's biological elder brother, Yun Yi. Now that she had inherited the original host's identity, did that mean that Yun Yi was her elder brother? Yun Jian was separated from her family when she was young in her past life. By the time she found her family, she was only left with her younger brother. She had only met her younger brother once. Before she could enjoy the familial love, her younger brother was killed. Having never experienced familial love, Yun Jian was stunned. Looking at Yun Yi, she uttered a word carefully. "Brother?" Yun Yi hopped down the steps handsomely and went to where Yun Jian and Lu Fian were. He placed his hand naturally on his younger sister Yun Jian's shoulder, and flashed a refreshing smile that was enough to make many girls squeal. Xiao Jian, your brother finished school early today, so I came to pick you up. Don't forget, it's our mom's birthday today. She's worked hard for us all her life, so we should honor her today, Yunyi answered and spoke up, afraid that Yun Jian would forget what day it was. Yun Jian did not know the situation, but she found the answer from the original host's memory. The original host's family was more complicated and she had a biological elder brother. Her brother had excellent results in the middle school exams last year, and was admitted to a key high school in the city. Today was Friday, but it was also the birthday of the original host's mother, so Yunyi had told the original host early in the morning that she would rush back from the city to celebrate her mother's birthday. Chapter 9. I didn't forget. It's Mom's birthday today. Looking at Yunyi's excited face, Yun Jian made up a small lie. Okay, don't I know you? Let's go, we'll go to the gift shop later and pick out a birthday present for Mom. Yunyi patted Yun Jian's shoulder and said, Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Then the three of them walked to the gift shop in town. Because Lu Fian had to go home early, she said goodbye to Yun Jian before reaching the gift shop in town. Lu Fian's family was strict. Her parents were retired teachers, and they had a daughter at an old age, so they doted on Lu Fian a lot. They even set a rule that she had to go home immediately after school. Even if she wanted to go out to play, she had to go home first to tell her parents and get permission. So when she heard that Yun Jian and Yunyi were going to the gift shop in town, she could only apologize and leave first. Seeing that Lu Fian had left, Yun Jian didn't ask her to stay. She waited for Lu Fian to leave, then continued to walk to the gift shop in town with Yunyi. Brother, is there a phone in town? Yun Jian waited for Lu Fian to leave for a while and asked Yunyi. Although she had just been reborn into this body and was very satisfied with her current life, she couldn't ignore some things from her previous life. She was an ace agent on the international list, and also the boss of Kosha mercenaries. She could give up the identity of an agent. After all, it was an identity that restricted her freedom in her previous life. But she couldn't ignore the Kosha mercenaries. Kosha Mercenaries was an internationally famous assassin organization. On the international official platform, as long as the employer could afford it, they could hire the Kosha mercenaries to do things for them. It could be said that since the Kosha mercenaries were born, as long as the employer could afford it, there was nothing that the Kosha mercenaries couldn't do. And she, Yun Jian, was the boss of such a mercenary group, the leader. The Kosha mercenaries was a force that she had obtained after killing the previous boss. It was not a small force. Yun Jian wanted to avenge her brother, so she definitely couldn't abandon this force. There's a shop not far away that has a phone installed. Why? Xiao Jian, you want to make a call? Yunyi glanced at Yun Jian suspiciously and asked. He had single-handedly protected his younger sister since she was young. It was only after he entered high school and returned home once every few months that he could no longer take care of her. However, it had only been a few days since the start of the semester. Who was his sister calling? How come he, the older brother, didn't know about it? Well, I want to make a phone call. Brother, can I? Yun Jian asked. Yunyi doted on her little sister, so she naturally wouldn't refuse. Okay. He had some pocket money saved up from his own meals. Although the phone bill was a little expensive, he was willing to spend it for his sister. In 1998, mobile phones were not yet popular in Z country. At this time, only a few tycoons, entrepreneurs and big bosses had mobile phones, pagers, and other communication devices. For the original owner's family, which was not considered rich at all, they could not even afford a telephone. Yun Jian and Yunyi came to a small shop. It was not big and the shopkeeper was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He held a fan in his hand and sat on a chair, waving his hand as he watched Yun Jian and Yunyi enter the shop. What would you like to buy? The shopkeeper asked casually. Boss, we want to make a call, Yunyi told the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper set the timer on the phone and passed the receiver to Yunyi. Yunyi passed the receiver to Yun Jian and asked Yun Jian to make the call. Yun Jian reached out and pressed a few numbers on the phone's dialing device, then waited for the call to go through. Yunyi kept staring at her little sister, trying to see who she was calling. Beep beep beep. After 3 rings, the call went through. After Yun Jian made the call, a man's fluent English voice came from the other end of the line. Hello. This man was her subordinate, codenamed Tiger. He was one of the leaders of the Kosha mercenaries and ranked 8th on the international assassin chart. Just like his codename, he had the ferocity of tiger and the speed of a cheetah. Yun Jian glanced at Yun Yi and spoke to Tiger on the other end of the line in fluent English without hesitation. "I'm slaying. I won't be going back for the time being. I'll leave the matters of the organization to you." Slaying God, also known as slaying. With that, Yun Jian hung up without waiting for the other party's reply. She would never wait for an answer when she spoke to someone on the phone. It was because the other party would definitely obey her orders. Hearing Yun Jian's fluent English just now, Yun Yi's eyes widened as she stared at her younger sister. Yun Yi was excellent in English and had even gotten into the best high school in the city. But her younger sister's grades had always been poor, especially in English. In spite of it, Yun Jian's fluent English just now was something that even the English teachers who graduated from their school would have to admit they were not as good as her. When did his younger sister become so outstanding? Moreover, who was that person? Why did Xiao Jian hang up right after she finished speaking? From the looks of it, it was as if he was talking to his subordinates. The shop owner who was still waving his fan paused abruptly when he saw Yun Jian's actions. To be honest, he had been a shop owner for many years, but this was the first time he had seen such a clean little girl. She made a call, spoke in a foreign language, and hung up before the other party could reply. What kind of call was that? Chapter 10. Xiao Jian, who did you call just now? Why did you hang up right after the call got through? Yun Yi paid the shop owner's phone bill and walked out of the shop with Yun Jian. He could not keep it a secret and blurted it out after holding it in. He realized that his younger sister's personality had changed a lot when he came back this time. In the past, whenever Yun Jian was troubled, she would tell him about it, even if it was the tiniest of trifles. Right now, Yun Jian was like a complete stranger to him. It was as if everything was just reality in her eyes. "Gu, I'll tell you in the future. Don't ask now," Yun Jian answered without further explanation. She knew that there was no hiding the truth and that the truth would be discovered one day, but she did not know how to tell Yun Yi. Should she tell him that his biological younger sister was dead and that her body was now possessed by a secret agent with the codename Slaying God? For some reason, she could not bring herself to say it. Okay. Yun Yi did not probe further when she heard that Yun Jian was intentionally hiding the truth. She was more or less keeping an eye on it. They left the shop and went to the gift shop to pick out a gift before going home. Yun Yi did not say a word along the way. Yun Jian did not utter a word as well. Both of them arrived home 20 minutes later. The original owner's house was not big, only one floor. The second floor was yet to be built. There was an empty space by the door. Other than that, there was nothing else. It was evident that the family was not wealthy. In fact, they were living a tough life. That was the truth as well. That was why the second floor of the house had not been built for a long time, because there was no extra money to build it. Yun Yi opened the door first and called out loudly, "Mom, we're home." Yun Jian stepped into the house with Yun Yi. She was at the top of the world in her previous life. Although she faced death every day, she lived the best life. Compared to her previous life, the original owner's house was simple but filled with warmth. "Xiao Yi, Xiao Jian, you're back. Dinner's just ready. Hurry up and wash your hands and get ready to eat." In the simple kitchen, a woman in her 40s carried a plate of dishes and muttered as she walked. This person was the mother of Yun Jian's current body, Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru was in her 40s. Although she was not very old, she looked a little old because of overwork. Yun Jian looked at Qin Yiru without moving. Mother, motherly love, these were words she had thought of in her previous life, but had never experienced. "Why are you still standing there? Go wash your hands and get ready to eat," Qin Yiru urged when she saw Yun Jian staring at her without moving. Yun Jian suddenly felt happy and ran to wash her hands. In an instant, her mind was turned upside down. She now had family, and from now on, she would be the one to protect them. "Mom, where's Dad?" Yun Yi came out of the kitchen after washing her hands and asked Qin Yiru. Yun Jian came out of the kitchen as well, her hands still wet. Just as Yun Yi finished her question, Qin Yiru's hands that were fiddling with the bowl and chopsticks suddenly paused. "He's not back yet." Qin Yiru sighed and said softly and tiredly, "He probably went to the Wang family's casino again." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. The original owner's family was rather complicated because of this. The original owner's mother was a worker in a textile factory, earning a meager salary to support her children's education. The original owner's father, on the other hand, was a loafer. Not only did he live off a woman at home, he did not have a job and loved to gamble. Once he gambled, he would stay out all night. Sometimes, he would even go home to steal the money Qin Yiru saved for the children's education to continue gambling. If he lost, he would go home to steal money and continue gambling, completely ignoring the lives of his family members. Therefore, the livelihood of this family completely fell on Qin Yiru's shoulders. After a long period of fatigue, Qin Yiru, who was only in her 40s, looked like an old woman in her 50s. Dong dong dong. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. There was someone outside. Qin Yiru was stunned for a moment before she swiped the handle to open the door. After opening the door, there was a group of completely unfamiliar faces standing at the door. The group of people seemed to have formed a gang and were gathered together, holding wooden sticks and so on in their hands. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. "Who are you looking for?" Qin Yiru asked carefully when she saw the group of people standing outside the door. Yun Jian silently stood beside Qin Yiru and also looked at the group of people outside the door. Among the group of people, the person standing at the front with a long scar on his face raised the wooden stick and looked impatiently at Qin Yiru. "This is Yun Gang's house?" Yun Gang was the original owner's father and also her current father. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Qin Yiru suddenly had a bad premonition, but she still replied, "Yes, and you are." Chapter 11. He borrowed from loan sharks? Qin Yiru's eyelids suddenly twitched. She spoke with uncertainty, and even her voice was trembling. She was referring to Yun Gang. "Nonsense. Yun Gang borrowed $5,000 from me 3 months ago and promised to return it today. Damn it. He's nowhere to be found today." The scar-faced man looked at Qin Yiru with disdain and said fiercely. Obviously, this group of people were hired by the scar-faced man. Yun Gang had not returned the money he borrowed and had gone into hiding. Since he couldn't be found, the scar-faced man naturally came to his house. What's more, for those who borrowed money from loan sharks, if they didn't pay back the money within a limited time, not only would the interest increase, more importantly, this group of loan sharks would do anything. Yun Gang had actually borrowed money from loan sharks behind her back. More importantly, he had borrowed $5,000. $5,000 in 1998 was not a small amount. Moreover, with their family's financial situation, they wouldn't even be able to return $500, much less $5,000. Now that Yun Gang had borrowed the money, he had run away and left this mess behind. He was forcing them into a dead end. Qin Yiru clutched her chest, her body trembling slightly. She was so angry that she almost couldn't stand properly. Yun Jian caught her in time. "Mom, are you okay?" Yun Jian's eyes were fixed on Qin Yiru. She didn't even look at the scar-faced man and his group of people. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was just that although this group of people looked majestic, and each of them was holding a metal rod and wooden rod in their hands, they looked intimidating, but when it came to their true abilities, she didn't fear them at all. Yun Yi clenched her fists and looked at these people in front of her. However, she could only suppress the anger in her heart and said to the scar-faced man, "The money. Our family will return it. Can you give us a few more days?" What Yun Yi wanted to do most now was to find his father and give him a good beating. However, there was nothing he could do now. His father was a scumbag and inhuman. But now, he was the only man in the family. He had to think for his mother and sister and shoulder the heavy responsibility of this family. Therefore, he could only lower his attitude towards this group of people. It couldn't be helped. Who asked them to meet such a father? The scar-faced man sneered and reached out to pick his nose, picking out a lump of booger from his nostril. He looked at Yun Yi as if she was a clown and said in a disdainful tone, "Give me a few days." "Sure." However, before Yun Yi could breathe a sigh of relief, the scar-faced man continued, "Unless you let your sister accompany us and have fun. Or you can lick the booger on my hand clean. Maybe I'll be happy and agree." Ha! Ha ha! As he spoke, the scar-faced man lifted the booger that he had just picked out from his nose. The surrounding men with the scar-faced man all laughed and looked at Yun Jian with evil intentions. This little beauty's appearance was really not bad. She had big eyes and a small mouth. Her appearance was very delicate and pretty. Yun-yi suddenly clenched his fists, but he couldn't do anything. For his sister and mother, he had to endure it. He definitely wouldn't let his sister get hurt at all. Therefore he chose the latter. Okay, I'll lick it. Yun-yi spat out these 3 words from between his teeth. It could be seen that he was angry and unwilling at this time. Everyone present laughed loudly and waited to watch a good show. Yun-yi strode forward with his slender legs, intending to listen to the scar-faced man's words and satisfy them first. Just as he was about to stabilize the current situation, he felt a cold sensation on his wrist before he could walk over. He turned around and saw that Yun-jian had grabbed his hand. Her eyes were fixed in front of her, staring at the scar-faced man and the others. She curled her lips and gently wiped them, revealing a clever and terrifying sneer. Chapter 12. From the moment Yun-yi protected her, or perhaps even earlier, Yun-jian had already made up her mind. She wanted to protect this body's brother and mother, because she was now Yun-jian. This kinship was not easy to come by. Hey! The scar-faced man whistled and sized up Yun-jian from head to toe. He jeered, "This chick's temper is quite fiery, but I like this temper." As soon as he said that, the group of men around them also started to jeer. Yun-jian's harsh words were completely treated as a joke in the eyes of this group of people. This little girl actually dared to speak in such a tone? Wasn't she trying to be funny? Seeing this group of people looking at her sister strangely, Yun-yi quickly shielded Yun-jian behind her again. "This matter has nothing to do with my sister and mother. If you want money, come to me. I will find a way to return it to you." When Yun-yi said that, she was not confident. "Return it? How are you going to return it?" The scar-faced man suddenly stopped smiling and stared at Yun-yi fiercely. "Today's money. I must take it with me. Otherwise, I will chop off one of your hands." Would she still be alive? If Yun-yi lost both of her hands, how was she going to live in the future? How was she going to talk about the future? At this point, Qin Yiru could not take it anymore. She rushed out in despair and stood in front of Yun-jian and Yun-yi, protecting them with all her might. She lost control and knelt down at the scar-faced man and the group of people, shouting, "Don't hurt my children. If you want to chop off my hands, chop them off. It's all my fault. I beg you, don't hurt my children." Seeing this scene, the scar-faced man boasted even more mockingly. This family was really interesting. Yun-jian caught Qin Yiru in time and prevented her from kneeling down. She handed Qin Yiru over to Yun-yi and rolled up her sleeves without saying a word. Seeing Yun-jian's action, everyone was stunned. What was she trying to do? But in the next second, Yun-jian rolled up her sleeves and walked towards the scarred man's group. "Yo, brother Fan, has this little beauty thought it through and decided to offer herself to you?" Ha! Ha! Standing next to the scarred man, a monkey-like man boasted to the scarred man. The scar-faced man who was called Brother Fan was Zhang Zhifan. Zhang Zhifan was the big brother of this group. A group of people led by Zhang Zhifan had done a lot of bad things by lending money at high interest rates and forcing people to collect their debts. As for Zhang Zhifan himself, he had seen many faces and knew many people. But he had never seen someone like Yun-jian. Yun-jian looked delicate and innocent, but in reality, she seemed to carry a deadly murderous aura. However, Zhang Zhifan did not think too much about it. After all, no matter how powerful Yun-jian was, she was just a teenage girl. Her hair was not even fully grown yet. They were all grown men. Why would they be afraid of such a young girl? What would it look like if word got out? Just as Zhang Zhifan decided to ignore Yun-jian and directly cripple Yun-yi's hand to show off his power, he was shocked by Yun-jian's next move. Yun-jian rolled up her sleeves and revealed a smirk. In the next moment, she took 2 steps forward and wrapped her hands around the monkey-like man beside Zhang Zhifan, who had spoken rudely to her. She grabbed his wrist and swung him up at a 360-degree angle, smashing him heavily onto the ground. Yun-jian's move was so fast and fierce that everyone who saw it was so shocked that their mouths were wide open. Was this the speed a person should have? Was this the strength a young girl should have? She had just swung him up and smashed him onto the ground. Chapter 13. Woo! The monkey-mouthed man was thrown to the ground by Yun-jian. He howled in pain, his body trembled slightly, and he fainted after falling to the ground. When everyone saw this scene, they instantly felt a chill run down their spines. Qin Yiru looked at her daughter in disbelief. Yun Yi narrowed her eyes thoughtfully, but she was also shocked by her sister's actions. You. Seeing Yun Jian throw the monkey-mouthed man to the ground and slowly walk towards him again, Zhang Zhifan could no longer remain calm. Previously, he didn't take Yun Jian's words seriously and only treated her as a child. But now, with the monkey-mouthed man lying on the ground, they didn't know whether he was dead or alive. Zhang Zhifan and the others all obediently shut their mouths, their hearts trembling with fear. They also saw clearly how the monkey-mouthed man fell to the ground just now. The monkey-mouthed man's reaction speed was the fastest among them. But Yun Jian's speed was several times faster than the monkey-mouthed man's. The people present couldn't even catch Yun Jian's speed with their naked eyes. How could they beat her? At this moment, Yun Jian slowly walked toward Zhang Zhifan, stopped, raised her eyes, and looked at him with her beautiful and sharp eyes without fear. I will return the money to you on behalf of my father. Yun Jian finally stopped and didn't attack again. Zhang Zhifan and the others inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief. On one hand, it was because they were afraid of Yun Jian. On the other hand, they felt that Yun Jian wasn't the kind of person who didn't keep her words. Just when Zhang Zhifan thought that everything was over, he heard Yun Jian's voice again. Her voice was so cold. But don't think that you can leave here like this. Just now, my brother and mother were frightened because of you. If you don't apologize, then I will cripple both of your hands on the spot. Just now, Zhang Zhifan was pressuring her to pay up. He said that if Yun Yi couldn't pay up, he would cripple one of Yun Gang's hands. And now, Yun Jian had returned the same words to them. Just because her mother and brother were frightened, she wanted to break their hands if they didn't apologize. Zhang Zhifan and the others widened their eyes. After what happened just now, they didn't dare to doubt Yun Jian's words anymore. However, what they did not know was that Yun Jian's codename was Slaying God. If she was still a secret agent, she would not just want their hands. That would be fate. Xiao Jian, come back. Let's forget about it. Let's not be calculative. Mom and your brother are fine. They weren't frightened. Qin Yiru was mild-mannered and was afraid that Yun Jian would continue to be calculative. Zhang Zhifan and the others had found help after they left, so she called out to Yun Jian, worried that her daughter would be hurt. How could someone like Zhang Zhifan, who earned money from loan sharks all year round, not have a backer? If they really pissed them off, Qin Yiru was afraid that they would come knocking again and her daughter would be in real danger. Yun Jian did not turn to look at Qin Yiru, but she had listened to Qin Yiru and let Zhang Zhifan and the others go. Since my mom said so, scram. Yun Jian looked up and glanced at Zhang Zhifan and the others. Then, she looked at Zhang Zhifan and the others and chuckled. Remember, the person who owes you money is my father, Yun Gang. I'll return the money for him this time, but if there's a next time, go find him if you want him dead or alive. He asked for it himself. Don't ever come to my house again. Zhang Zhifan and the others' eyelids twitched at her words. This little girl really knows how to say anything. No matter how much of a jerk Yun Gang was, he was still her father, right? How could she say something so heartless at such a young age? Coupled with her unfathomable skills just now, it was hard to fathom. Chapter 14. After Zhang Zhifan and the others left, Qin Yiru collapsed completely. She shuddered and nearly fell to the floor, her eyes glazed over. It was fortunate that Yun Yi was holding her up, so she did not look terrible. To a woman, having her husband cheat on her was the most intolerable thing. Apart from this, the concept of gambling and cheating were the same. Small gambles were enjoyable while large gambles were harmful. Although Yun Gang did not cheat on his wife, he was addicted to gambling and neglected his job. All these years, he relied on Qin Yiru to take care of the household and earn money to support the family. Not only that, sometimes, the money that Qin Yiru worked hard to earn would be stolen by Yun Gang. He continued to gamble and was never tired of it. Qin Yiru could tolerate all this. She had thought that it would be over after a little bit of tolerance and she would just make do with it. Who would have thought that Yun Gang would borrow money from loan sharks? He was really going to drive them to their deaths. Those loan sharks were capable of doing anything. If Xiao Jian had not been ruthless and chased those people away today, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Qin Yiru did not consider how her daughter, Yun Jian, had become so skilled all of a sudden. It was because her mind was not here now. For the first time, she truly wanted to divorce Yun Gang. If this continued, Yun Gang would drag Xiao Jian and Xiao Yi down to their deaths sooner or later. They could not live like this anymore. Yun Jian walked to Qin Yiru in silence. Looking at this person called her mother, she did not know why she felt a pang of jealousy. In spite of it, she knew that this was not her true feelings. It was probably the heart that was left in her by the original owner. Mom, you still have me and Gidge. We'll live on our own from now on. As for her so-called father, he was heartless, so naturally, Yun Jian would not be loyal to him. Yun Jian looked at Qin Yiru and Yun Yi and spoke resolutely, which made Qin Yiru feel better. Qin Yiru held Yun Jian's hand tightly. Her pale face eased a little as she nodded heavily. Even if Qin Yiru did not say anything about Yun Gang, she would still be bothered. Qin Yiru did not say anything during dinner, remaining silent. Even when Yun Yi gave Qin Yiru the gift she had carefully selected, she only smiled faintly. There was an indescribable bitterness in her heart. Yun Jian could not understand Qin Yiru's pain. The pain of an ordinary woman. It was a silent night. It was Saturday. The next morning, Yun Jian woke up early and loaded all the heavier items into her bag before running a few laps around Xinjiang town's riverside with her bag. Exercise was a habit from her previous life. However, the physique of this body was not good. She was drenched in sweat after running a few rounds with more than 10 kilograms of weight. In her previous life, she could run around the river with a person on her back without blushing, let alone more than 10 kilograms of weight. When the weather turned cloudy in the afternoon, Lu Fian came to Yun Jian's house to ask Yun Jian to go play in the park nearby. It was then that Yun Jian remembered that the original owner of her body had promised her earlier that they would go for a walk in the park this weekend. The park was not big, but it was a rather famous place near Xinjiang town. Usually, many people would come here for a stroll when the weather was good. The weather turned cloudy on Saturday afternoon, making it a good day for a walk. When Yun Jian and Lu Fian arrived, there were already many people in the park. Xiao Jian, let's go sit at the pavilion over there. Lu Fian told Yun Jian, perhaps tired from running a few rounds around the park. Yun Jian nodded and both of them went over. There were already people standing at the pavilion, but there were still empty seats. When they approached the pavilion, however, Lu Fian suddenly exclaimed in surprise, that's... As she spoke, she pointed at a young man sitting at the pavilion. Yun Jian's pretty eyes looked over there. A good-looking young man in a white t-shirt with bloodstains was sitting on the stone bench at the pavilion. He was surrounded by a group of young men and women. This person was none other than the culprit who caused the original owner of her body to be accidentally killed by Lin Mingyu, Yuan Yingjun. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Yun Jian smirked and was about to leave when she heard Yuan Yingjun's surprised voice behind her. Xiao Jian? Why, are you here for a walk too? Or are you here because of me? Chapter 15. Yun Jian nearly laughed out loud when she heard Yuan Yingjun's last sentence. This was the funniest joke she had ever heard. She was just taking a stroll in the park and happened to bump into this person, yet she was being accused of coming for him? Yun Jian turned to look at Yuan Yingjun with a smirk. Who are you to me? I'm just taking a stroll in the park. What does it have to do with me whether you're here or not? Yun Jian's words hit the nail on the head, but it was also the truth. If the person standing here was not Yun Jian but the original owner of the body, she would not dare say a word even if she was framed like this. That was why Lin Mingyu thought that it was Yun Jian who seduced Yuan Yingjun and not the other way around. That was why she found out about it. Humph, Yun Jian, who doesn't know how to play hard to get. Do you think he'll look at you more just because you're so handsome? Dream on. Before Yuan Yingjun could say anything, a short and chubby girl with heavy makeup standing beside him spat at Yun Jian. This chubby girl was obviously Yuan Yingjun's admirer. It was just that Yun Jian did not expect that Yuan Yingjun, as Lin Mingyu's boyfriend, did not take care of her after she sent her to the hospital. Instead, he came to the park happily with a bunch of other people. Ha! Yun Jian's cold gaze flickered. Not wanting to be involved with these people, she turned to pull Lu Fian away. She did not want to bother with a man like this, a scumbag for short. Lu Fian was taken aback by Yun Jian's reaction just now as well. If this had happened in the past, Xiao Jian would have nothing to say and would only hide behind her. Today, however, she retorted. Stop right there, both of you stop right there. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. I really won't be polite. When the fat girl saw that Yun Jian and Lu Fian didn't even look at her and were about to leave, she immediately became angry. The chubby girl's name was Xu Li. She was Xinjiang town's mayor's daughter and used her father's position to bully others. Ever since she was young, she had the typical temper of a spoiled brat. Everyone in the town, inside and outside, who didn't try to coax her. But just now, this girl named Yun Jian actually dared to challenge him? She even wanted to leave without saying a word. Where was she supposed to put her face? Therefore, he shouted angrily. Yun Jian ignored Xu Li's threatening words. She dragged Lu Fian to a place far away before she turned her head back. Who are you? Why should I listen to you and stop just because you tell me to? Yun Jian said with a contemptuous smile. She was the ruler of the Secret Service industry. She single-handedly controlled the world's largest mercenary group. Countless tycoons, business tycoons, and politicians would tremble in fear at the mere mention of her name. Yet now, even the mayor's daughter of a small town dared to speak to her in such a tone. Since when did she, slaying God, allow herself to be manipulated by others? Even if she did, she would be dead by now. Yuan Yingjun, who stood where he was, thought that Yun Jian was really playing some tricks, so he flashed a smile that was considered handsome to others. Inwardly, however, he was thinking, playing hard to get? Yun Jian's acting was quite convincing. However, this made him want this woman even more than before. There was still plenty of time. He did not believe that this woman would not be attracted by his good looks and fall into his arms. Yuan Yingjun had completely forgotten that he still had a girlfriend who was receiving treatment in the hospital, Lin Mengyu. Chapter 16. Ai. My father is Xinjiang town's mayor. How dare you talk to me like that? Ha! Be careful or I'll make you pay for it. Xu Li was so incensed by Yun Jian's words that she blurted out all sorts of nonsense. Yun Jian could not help bursting into laughter when she heard that. Why were all these children of rich and powerful families the same? What Xu Li said was very similar to what Lin Mengyu had said before. It was just that Lin Mengyu's father was the school's principal while Xu Li's father was the mayor. From an objective point of view, there was no difference. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Yun Jian crossed her arms and looked at Xu Li with a different gaze. In an era where the rich and powerful relied on their fathers, it would be a miracle if the original owner of the body could live peacefully with her family background and status. It was a pity that Yun Jian was not the original owner of the body. She could not be indifferent when others were pointing fingers at her. Xiao Jian, stop pretending. You've successfully caught my attention. Just tell us if you want to tour the park with us. Everyone welcomes you. Yuan Yingjun flicked his hair that looked rather charming and told Yun Jian with a look that said, I know what you're thinking. He thought that Yun Jian's words were Yun Jian's trick to play hard to get. To Yuan Yingjun, Yun Jian had put in a lot of effort to make the act so realistic. In spite of it, this was great. He had long wanted to mess with Yun Jian. Yun Jian had a delicate appearance and was so much prettier than Lin Mengyu, who had neither looks nor figure. If Lin Mengyu was not the principal's daughter, Yuan Yingjun would not want to be close to her. As for Yun Jian, to Yuan Yingjun, he was purely toying with her, thinking that he would throw her away once he was tired of her. That was all. Sorry, I don't play with pigs. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. It was a dazzling smile that was like the thorns of a rose, catching people off guard. Pigs? How dare she compare them to pigs? In the next second, Yuan Yingjun's expression darkened. Was Yun Jian too engrossed in her act? He had already invited her. What else did she want? Xu Li, on the other hand, started scolding Yun Jian. You're the pig. Your whole family is from the gutter. People like you don't even have the face to live in this world. You want to attract Yingjun's attention. Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? I didn't mention any names, but if you're assuming it's me, that's the truth. Yun Jian spoke faintly, but there was a smile on her lips. As soon as these words came out, Yuan Yingjun and Xu Li's faces instantly paled, looking very embarrassed. Ah! Snake! Snake! It was then that Lu Fian shrieked. Yun Jian turned to look at her. Following the direction that Lu Fian's trembling finger was pointing at, on the edge of the grass less than half a meter away from him and Lu Fian, There was a snake about 1/2 meter long. Its body was yellowish-brown to dark grayish-black, and its head was oval. Its head was raised and its neck was flattened like a rice spoon. Lu Fian had also suddenly noticed the venomous snake that had just crawled out from the bushes and screamed. Yun Jian's senses were quite good. Long before Lu Fian screamed, when she said that to Yuaning Jun and the others, she had already felt the sound from the bushes. However, she only knew that it was a snake when she saw it. Her guess was not far from the truth. Isn't that a cobra? Beside Yuaning Jun, a square-looking young man with large spectacles pointed at the snake and shouted in surprise. The park was not particularly big and it was summer. There were snakes but a cobra. A cobra, that was a real venomous snake. If you were bitten by it, you would die if you were not sent to the hospital immediately. Although Yuaning Jun and the others were far away, everyone, including Yuaning Jun himself, was scared. However, when they looked at Yun Jian, she looked natural and did not look scared at all. Everyone panicked. Chapter 17. Summer was the peak season for snakes, so it was not unusual to have 1 or 2 snakes in the park. It was just that they were extremely lucky to encounter a cobra. At this moment, the dark gray cobra that slowly crawled out of the bushes raised its head proudly. Its neck was flattened, and its tongue was hissing from its mouth. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and pulled Lu Fian behind her without a word. The cobra's head was raised, indicating that it was ready to attack. Xiao Jian! You! Lu Fian cried out in worry when she saw Yun Jian pulling her behind her while she faced the cobra that was not far away. Xiao Jian, be careful. One must not run when encountering a snake, much less run in a straight line. That was because the snake would chase after them with all its might. Yuaning Jun and others who were a distance away were petrified. They dared not move or breathe in the pavilion, afraid that the cobra would notice them. Most people were born fearful of snakes, not to mention a cobra. This was a real venomous snake. One would die if they were bitten. Yuaning Jun and others widened their eyes as they watched Yun Jian pull Lu Fian behind her to protect her. Then they looked at Yun Jian, who was staring at the cobra intently like she was on her guard. Could it be that she wanted to fight against this venomous cobra by herself? Just thinking about the situation was enough to send chills down their spines. The cobra's body was wriggling, its head bobbing up and down as it swayed left and right. Unless one was a professional snake catcher, a human would need tools to catch a venomous snake. How could a person catch a snake when they stretched out their hands? Just as Yuaning Jun and others thought so and sensed the danger, imagining that Yun Jian might be bitten by the cobra in the next second, the cobra suddenly crawled toward Yun Jian. The cobra slithered to Yun Jian's left and right, shaking its head. In the next second, its coiled body uncoiled and attacked Yun Jian, who was closest to it, in a straight line. No! Xiao Jian! Lu Fian cried out when she saw Yun Jian shielding her. She wanted to push Yun Jian away at once, instinctively wanting to block the attack for her best friend. Unexpectedly, a scene that made everyone's jaws drop appeared in front of them. Yun Jian stood upright in front of the cobra with a slight smirk, watching as it arched toward her and attacked her body with a swoosh. At the same time, she extended her hand. Her hand seemed to have understood the direction of the cobra's attack and flung them in the next second. Yun Jian's delicate hand was so fast that it was indiscernible to the naked eye and pinched the neck of the cobra that was attacking her. She choked the cobra's neck so that it couldn't bite her. At the same time, her other hand quickly reached for the cobra's weak spot, the heart, and pinched hard. The cobra shook violently before it was strangled to death by Yun Jian. Yun Jian had caught him and strangled him to death with her bare hands. It was a simple action, but it stirred up a multitude of emotions in the audience. That was a venomous snake. It was killed by Yun Jian. Moreover, Yun Jian's hand gesture when she killed the snake looked like she had practiced it countless times. Even when she killed a venomous snake, there was not a hint of fear in her eyes. How could an ordinary student have such skills and abilities? Moreover, even an adult would be frightened when they saw a venomous snake like this. Yet, Yun Jian killed the cobra without batting an eyelid. Chapter 18. Slap. Yun Jian tossed the cobra's carcass on the ground and pulled out a tissue from her pocket to wipe her hands. This action was extremely strange in the eyes of Yuaning Jun and the others. Yuaning Jun and the others couldn't help but shiver slightly. Yun Jian did not look like the cowardly slug she used to be. She was like a devil who walked out of hell and killed without batting an eyelid. This was Yuan Jun and the others' first impression. Yun Jian was not faking it all along. As a secret agent in her past life, she had killed people like flies, stepping over countless corpses to become the only survivor. When she was trained by the organization in her early years, she was thrown into the wild forest on an island together with hundreds of others. They were not given anything. Whether they lived or died depended on their own abilities. The wild forest was filled with venomous scorpions, snakes, bugs, and beasts. The slightest carelessness could cost one their life. For a whole year, she stayed on the island in the wild forest, coexisting with the venomous scorpions and beasts, and survived to become one of the survivors. Therefore, it was easy for her to deal with the cobra. The fatal spot of a snake was its heart. Yun Jian knew this like the back of her hand. Xiao Jian, you. Lu Fian stared at Yun Jian in disbelief as she moaned softly and subconsciously took 2 steps back. Was this still her best friend, Xiao Jian? The current Xiao Jian had killed a venomous snake on her own. Was this the Xiao Jian who would run away in fear when she saw a cockroach? Yun Jian did not know if Lu Fian was suspicious, but she could feel the latter's fear of her actions just now. There was a sense of alienation and dread. Yun Jian raised a brow and asked Lu Fian coldly, "You're scared of me?" No. I'm not, Xiao Jian, I'm just... Lu Fian shook her head quickly but was cut off by Yun Jian. Not everyone is willing to be a weakling. In the past, I was weak and powerless. But from now on I will be like this. Yun Jian looked at Lu Fian and said each word clearly. Then she added, "If you're afraid, then don't look for me in the future." It wasn't that she was cold-blooded and heartless, but the environment of her previous life had made her who she was today. Sooner or later, he would return to the environment of his previous life, because he had yet to avenge his younger brother. If Lu Fian chose to distance herself from him, it would be a good thing. No. Lu Fian suddenly took a few steps forward and grabbed Yun Jian's hand tightly, her determined gaze glowing. Xiao Jian, no matter what you become, you'll always be my best friend. Forever. I was just a little surprised just now. Seeing Lu Fian's firm gaze, Yun Jian finally nodded. After all, Lu Fian was just an ordinary girl in her 3rd year of middle school. The way she killed the cobra was too cruel, so it was normal for Lu Fian to not be able to accept it immediately. In spite of it, Lu Fian's plan to befriend her after witnessing her ruthless side was beyond Yun Jian's expectations. After that, Yuan Jun and the others watched as Yun Jian and Lu Fian left together, not daring to stop them. Even Xu Li, who had been aggressive and spoiled at the beginning, did not dare say a word when she saw them leaving, allowing Yun Jian and Lu Fian to leave. Chapter 19. Yun Jian and Lu Fian left the park together and went home separately. It was Saturday today. Qin Yiru was still working overtime in the textile factory at this time. When Yun Jian got home, she saw her brother, Yun Yi, sitting at the only table in the living room. There was an exercise book on the table, and he had a pen between his slender fingers as he pondered over a problem on the book with a frown. Her brother, Yun Yi, had always been excellent in his studies and had even gotten into a top high school in the city, bringing honor to their family. However, the original owner of her body could not improve her grades no matter how hard she tried. She was known as a poor student in class and was not valued by the teachers in school. Although the 2 of them were biological siblings, there was a world of difference in their grades. Goo! Yun Jian went over and called out. "Hey Xiao Jian, you're back?" Yun Yi retracted his heavy gaze from the exercise book and turned to look at his younger sister. "Goo, you're going back to school in the city tomorrow, right?" "I want to go to the city with you," Yun Jian spoke her mind. Now that the original owner's father was in debt, she would not break her promise that Zhang Zhifan would clear the debt for him. Now that she needed money, she had to make a trip to the city. There were many things that could not be done in Xinjiang town. "Why do you want to go to the city all of a sudden? Did Xiao Jian want to buy something? Do you want me to bring it back for you next time?" Yun Yi put down his pen and turned to face Yun Jian. "Goo, I want to go." Yun Jian knew that Yun Yi loved his younger sister a lot. She did not know how to explain herself, so she mimicked the original owner of her body and shook Yun Yi's arm coquettishly. Okay. Yun Yi could only agree helplessly since he had always doted on his younger sister. Letting Yun Jian go to the city meant that his pocket money would be reduced by a lot. After all, it was not cheap to bring his younger sister to the city. Otherwise, he would not return home every few months after he went to school in the city. But for the sake of his sister, it was worth it. Yes, yes. Yun Jian pursed her lips and smiled. In her previous life, she did not receive any familial love. After her rebirth, she received both a mother's love and the love of an older brother. She instantly felt that it was not bad to be reborn. It was 5:30 in the evening. It was supposed to be time for Qin Yiru to get off work and have dinner. However, when it was 6 in the evening, the sky gradually darkened, and Qin Yiru was still not home. The textile factory where Qin Yiru worked was not far from here. It only took 10 minutes to walk home. Usually, Qin Yiru would be home by 5:50 p.m. at the latest. But today, she hadn't come home yet. At 6:20 p.m., Yun-yi couldn't sit still anymore. Why hadn't her mother come home yet? Could it be that something had happened? With that in mind, Yun-yi stood up at once and reminded Yun Jian, "Xiaojian, stay at home. I'll go check why Mom isn't back yet." Just as he was about to leave, Yun Jian stood up and said, "I'll go too." Yun-yi did not refuse. Yun Jian and Yun-yi opened the door and walked toward the textile factory where Qin Yiru worked for about 3 minutes before they saw a slightly plump woman in her 40s rushing over. She was Yun Jian's neighbor. Her surname was Wang, and everyone around her called her Aunt Wang. Aunt Wang and Qin Yiru worked in the same factory and were neighbors, so they usually went home together. "Why did you come back in such a hurry today?" Yun Jian's eyes twitched. Yun-yi stepped forward and asked, "Aunt Wang, why isn't my mom back yet this late?" Before she could finish, she was interrupted by Aunt Wang's compassionate, sobbing and fearful words. Chapter 20. Xinjiang town's only textile factory was very large. There were at least several hundred to over 1,000 workers, and Qin Yiru was one of them. The workers in the textile factory did not have a high wage, but compared to those who worked at home, their wages were many times higher. Of course, there were pros and cons. The workers in the textile factory all used the textile machine to work. It was normal for them to accidentally get scratched or hurt their hands. In serious cases, there were even some who accidentally broke their fingers in half. In the previous host's family, Yun Jian and Yun-yi were both students. They also had a lazy father who only knew how to gamble. It was easy to imagine how much pressure Qin Yiru had. Before Yun Jian was reborn into this body, the previous host and Yun-yi had always been against Qin Yiru working in the textile factory. But what could they do? This family's living expenses were not small. If Qin Yiru went to work, how could she pay for the 2 children's school fees? This time, the thing she was worried about happened. Qin Yiru accidentally hurt her hand. Hearing Auntie Wang's tone, Qin Yiru's injury was not light. Qin Yiru was actually injured. Yun Jian's heart sank as an inexplicable worry squeezed her heart. Although she had not been reborn for long, she already treated Qin Yiru and Yun-yi as her family. "Where is my mom now?" Yun Jian looked at Auntie Wang and asked. She's in our town's hospital." Auntie Wang still could not recover from her shock. But before Auntie Wang finished speaking, Yun Jian ran towards Xinjiang town's largest hospital. Yun-yi heard Auntie Wang's words and followed Yun Jian's footsteps. She felt even more afraid. She was afraid that something would really happen to Qin Yiru. Xinjiang town had a few clinics, but this was the only large-scale hospital. Yun Jian was in a hurry to get to the hospital. Her pace was so fast that she left Yun-yi far behind. However, Yun-yi was not in the mood to think about these things. He was also running desperately to the hospital. At the entrance of the hospital, Yun Jian strode in and stood in front of the front desk in an instant. Unknowingly, the cashier at the front desk was shocked. "Where is the person who was sent here with an injured hand?" Yun Jian asked directly. The cashier was stunned and pointed to an aisle. "I just saw him being sent to the emergency room." Before she could finish speaking, Yun Jian had already disappeared in front of her. That speed was simply not something that could be seen with the naked eye. The cashier rubbed her eyes in shock. Outside the emergency room, a tall and burly middle-aged man was pacing back and forth with a frown. This man was the general manager of the textile factory. His name was Gao Jian. Qin Yiru was an employee of his factory. If her injury was too serious, the factory might be implicated. If she encountered difficult workers, they might even ask for huge compensation. Therefore, Gao Jian was burning with anxiety. However, just as Gao Jian stomped his feet, he saw an extremely delicate, and beautiful girl suddenly appear in front of him. She actually reached out and grabbed his collar. "Where is Qin Yiru?" Yun Jian grabbed Gao Jian's collar and asked directly. Gao Jian was already anxious, but at this moment, he glanced at Yun Jian. Naturally, he knew that Auntie Wang had already gone to inform her family. Therefore he understood and said, "You are Qin Yiru's family? She is now undergoing surgery in the emergency room, but the doctor said that the situation is not optimistic." The doctor said that Qin Yiru's hand was probably going to be crippled. It was very likely that it would need to be amputated. Because the injury was too serious, she had already fainted. However, Gao Jian did not say the latter part. If he said it out loud, he was afraid that this girl would not be able to take the blow. Just as Gao Jian finished speaking, the emergency room door was opened. A doctor in a white coat walked out and looked at Yun Jian and Gao Jian sternly. "Who is the patient's family?" "The patient's current situation is very unfavorable. Because the injury is too serious, our hospital's equipment is not complete. It will be too late to send her to the city's people's hospital. Therefore, the best solution now is to amputate her arm. Otherwise, if the current situation continues, her life will be in danger." Xinjiang town was only a small town and did not have complete medical equipment. Now that it was around 1998, the road to the city's people's hospital from here was not short. By then, something would happen to her. The doctors had no choice but to use this method. Amputate. It's over. Gao Jian's heart instantly sank when he heard that. He was not really worried about Qin Yiru, but the factory was going to lose money. If her arm was amputated, the compensation would be even more. Chapter 21. Yun Jian's words shocked the two people present. After the doctor in the white coat came back to his senses, he reprimanded Yun Jian like an elder without thinking. "Nonsense! Nonsense! How can you treat a human life as a joke? Even us doctors can't do it. How can a little girl like you do it? Do you think this is a family business?" How old was this little girl? 15? 16? She didn't even know the most basic medical knowledge, and she was the chief surgeon? During an operation, the life and death of a patient depended on the chief surgeon's thoughts. She was the chief surgeon? This was simply nonsense. Yes, I know you're anxious now, but it's useless to be anxious. Now that the incident has happened, the doctors will definitely do their best. Gao Jian also quickly agreed with the doctor. Gao Jian was most worried about Qin Yiru's safety. Even if Qin Yiru's hand was amputated, the factory would still pay more compensation. However, if this little girl was allowed to do as she pleased, what if this person really died? That would be a life-threatening situation. This was not something that could be brushed off with some consolation money. If anything happens, I'll be responsible for it. At this juncture, Yun Jian had no time to talk nonsense with these two people. Qin Yiru was seriously injured, and she could not afford to wait. Now, every minute and second was very important to Qin Yiru. Therefore, after Yun Jian finished speaking, she pushed the doctor away and walked straight into the emergency room with her long legs. Hey. The doctor was pushed by Yun Jian and lost his balance. While he was surprised that this little girl was so strong, he quickly ran in after her. As soon as Yun Jian stepped into the operating room, Yun Yi, who had been rushing over but could not catch up with Yun Jian's speed, had already arrived at the entrance of the hospital. And now, Yun Jian had already arrived at the emergency room. Hey, where did this little girl come from? Why did she come to the operating room? He's still undergoing surgery and his life is in danger. Hurry up and get him out of here. Several assistant doctors standing beside the operating table saw Yun Jian coming in and wanted to chase her away. I'll be the chief surgeon for this surgery, Yun Jian suddenly said, not allowing anyone to refute her. She walked to the side, picked up the doctor's surgical gown and put it on. Then, she put on the sterile gloves and walked to the operating table. The assistant doctors and the doctors who followed Yun Jian into the operating theater saw Yun Jian putting on the surgical gown and sterile gloves. They could not help but widen their eyes. Was she really a 15 or 16-year-old girl? His movements were like that of a seasoned veteran in the medical field. Just as they were thinking, Yun Jian arrived at the operating table and saw Qin Yiru lying unconscious on the operating table. Qin Yiru's hands were severely injured by the weaving machine. It was not an exaggeration to say that both of his hands were badly mutilated. The bleeding had stopped, but his hands were hideous. His skin and flesh were even lacerated. Seeing this, Yun Jian could not help but feel pain in her heart. This was an emotion that came from the body's original owner. Yun Jian closed her eyes and stepped forward without hesitation, ready to take over the surgery. Not only was she the king of the secret agent world, she was also an outstanding elite in the medical field. In her previous life, her medical skills were superb. She was quite famous in the medical field. Because of her superb medical skills, she was even called the Hand of Death by the people in the medical field. Usually, as long as the person was not angered, she could bring them back to life. Xinjiang Town Hospital's medical standards were not high. If she was not here today, Qin Yiru would not have been able to escape the fate of having both of his hands amputated. But all of this was on the premise that Yun Jian did not do anything. Chapter 22. Young lady. Don't make a fuss. I know that you must have lost control of your emotions after seeing the patient's current state. But since all of this has happened, let us try our best to salvage the situation. Can you please leave first? The previous doctor looked at Yun Jian and kindly advised her again. The doctor thought for a while and thought that Yun Jian's current actions must have been because she could not take the blow. This patient must be someone to her. That was why this young lady could not take the blow and did something uncontrollable. Amputation of both hands was indeed an unbearable thing. However, in the doctor's opinion, this was the only way to save Qin Yiru. She is my mother. Yun Jian suddenly opened her mouth and said to the group of doctors in a calm tone, "Do you think that I would joke around with my mother's life?" It was because she was confident that she would do it. Was she supposed to watch as Qin Yiru's hands were amputated and she fell to the lowest point of her life? She had the ability to do so, but she did not do anything? She could not do it. So, please cooperate with me for the surgery. Yun Jian raised her voice and gave everyone another shock. Because Qin Yiru was her mother, no matter how willful or mischievous she could not joke around with Qin Yiru's life. Perhaps it was because of Yun Jian's words, or perhaps it was because of her extraordinary aura. The previous doctor and the assistant doctors on the scene did not say anything. After being stunned for 2 seconds, they followed her and returned to their respective positions. Yun Jian took over the position of the chief surgeon and continued the surgery. The doctors on the scene were sure that letting a 15-year-old girl take over the surgery was the craziest thing in history. Qin Yiru's hands were injured and her meridians had been damaged. The injured areas needed to be sutured with sutures and various factors had to be considered. Under such conditions where the medical equipment was not complete, none of the doctors on the scene could completely repair Qin Yiru's hands. Even the doctors could not do anything, let alone a young lady. However, Yun Jian's skillful and superb medical skills completely stunned everyone on the scene. Surgical forceps. Cloth towel pliers. Suture needle. Yun Jian reported the name of the surgical tool mechanically, and the assistant doctor immediately handed the surgical tool to her. Sewing, closing, cutting and sewing again. Every cut and every stitch was done exquisitely. Until the last second when the last wound on Qin Yiru's hand was stitched up, all the doctors present could not believe what they had just seen. With a trembling voice, the doctors slowly spat out the result of something that they thought was impossible. The operation was successfully completed. He had successfully completed it. When they turned to look at the young girl again, the doctor and the others' eyes were filled with admiration. He actually succeeded. Oh my God! How old was this girl? He thought that such a young girl would be scared witless when she saw Qin Yiru's horrifying wound. On the contrary, she was as calm as a mountain. At first, he thought that she was just spouting nonsense when she said that she wanted to take over the position of the chief surgeon. Chapter 23. Outside the emergency room. Yun Yi paced back and forth with worry written all over her face. Gao Jian, who was beside her, was the same. Both of them were anxious, but they knew that the operating room was not a place they could enter as they pleased. What puzzled Yun-yi was that he heard from Gao Jian that Xiao Jian had been in there for a long time. No one knew what she was up to, but she had not come out yet. Her mother's life was in danger while she could only wait outside. Yun-yi could not sit still once she thought about it. Creak! At this moment, the tightly shut door of the operating theater opened. The doctor from before was the first to appear on screen, but his expression was relaxed and there was even a relaxed and happy expression on his face. "Doctor, how's my mom?" Yun-yi dashed forward to ask once she saw him. Cough, cough. The doctor coughed softly and pretended to be calm before he announced, "The surgery was a success. The patient's condition is great now. I believe she'll be as good as new in a few months." As good as new? When Gao Jian heard this, he was immediately stunned. The doctor had said that Qin Yiru's life would be in danger if her leg was not amputated. In spite of it, Yun Jian had only been forced into the operating room for a short while, and the doctor had come out to say that she was fine and could be repaired as good as new. Could it be that Yun Jian was really something? Yun-yi breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, her mother was fine. Yun Jian took off the surgical gown and sterile gloves and walked out of the operating room. To not worry her brother, she asked the doctor to go out and announce the news first. At the same time, Yun Jian reached an agreement with the doctors. She could teach them the medical skill and ask them to keep it a secret. The surgery was a success of her own. "Brother, it's fine now," Yun Jian agreed softly when she saw Yun-yi's pale face. When Qin Yiru woke up at 5:30 the next morning, she did not look as pale as before. Instead, there was a tinge of color in her cheeks. Yun Jian peeled an apple and fed it into Qin Yiru's mouth one bite at a time, reminding her softly, "Mom, eat slowly." Qin Yiru felt like she had just escaped death. She smiled with tears in her eyes, looking at her sensible daughter with relief. That afternoon, Yun-yi went back to his school in the city for his evening self-study session. It was after Qin Yiru's persuasion that he went back to school first. Yun-yi wanted to stay and take care of her mother, but Qin Yiru refused, afraid that Yun-yi would delay her studies. The patient was the most important, so Yun-yi had no choice but to follow Qin Yiru's wishes. The doctor also said that Qin Yiru was in good condition now and was completely out of danger. Therefore, Yun-yi went back to the city. Yun Jian originally planned to go to the city with Yun-yi, but now she could only postpone this plan. From the beginning until now, her so-called father, Yun Gang, had not appeared. This made Yun Jian feel even more disgusted with this so-called father. In the evening, after cooking dinner at home, Yun Jian took it to the hospital. Gao Jian had paid for Qin Yiru's hospitalization on behalf of the factory. Gao Jian's factory did not renege on this. In order to nourish Qin Yiru's body, Yun Jian specially made a bowl of chicken soup and walked to the hospital. Just as she walked to Qin Yiru's ward, she heard a sharp, confident, and aggressive female voice from inside. Chapter 24. Upon hearing this, Yun Jian turned around and walked into the ward. She saw 2 or 3 people standing beside Qin Yiru's bed. The aggressive female voice just now came from a gorgeously dressed woman standing not far away. This woman was in her 40s, but because she took good care of herself, she looked like she was in her early 30s. This person was none other than her nominal aunt, Qin Yiru's older sister, Qin Junlan. Since Qin Yiru was injured, they were probably here to visit her. But their intentions were self-evident. "Mom, I made dinner for you. It's in a thermos." Yun Jian walked in after a glance, ignoring the people standing there and cutting off Qin Junlan's words as she went to the bedside and opened the thermos boxes one by one. Qin Yiru was injured and a sister from her family came to visit her the next day. This was supposed to be a happy occasion. But in reality, this was not the case. Qin Junlan's visit was just a cover. Her real purpose was to get Qin Yiru to return the money. Not long ago, Qin Yiru borrowed some money from Qin Junlan. As the school had just started, school fees were charged. Yun-yi was studying in a key high school in the city, so the fees were naturally high. Yun Jian was studying in a secondary school in town, so the fees for both of them were quite high. Qin Yiru could not afford it, so she could only borrow money from her older sister, Qin Junlan, who was better off than her. Qin Junlan had married well, and her husband was running a small business. Hence, she was leading a good life. But when Qin Yiru had asked her to borrow money, Qin Junlan had been hesitant to lend it to her. In the end, She had reluctantly lent some money to Qin Yiru because she was afraid that people would gossip about her. But today, when she heard that Qin Yiru was injured, Qin Junlan could not sit still. It was not because he was worried about his sister's injury, but because Qin Yiru had injured her hand. How was she going to earn money to repay the money she borrowed? Today, she hurriedly brought her family over to Qin Yiru in the name of visiting a patient. She wanted to ask Qin Yiru to return her money. "Sister, look at how injured I am now. I can't even take care of myself. Can I slowly return the money to you? Once I recover, I'll go back to work at the factory. I'll pay you back after I get my salary." Qin Yiru begged Qin Junlan. When Qin Junlan heard this, she was even more upset. In the beginning, he was not very willing to borrow money. Actually, Qin Junlan's family did not really need money. On the contrary, Qin Junlan's family was one of the wealthiest in Xinjiang town. However, no matter how rich her family was, she, Qin Junlan, was not willing to give money to others for free, even if it was her biological sister. Moreover, who knew when she would be able to return the money she lent to her poor sister? Qin Junlan's sharp eyes caught the chicken soup that Yun Jian had taken out from the thermos box. Her displeasure that was already there exploded at once. "Yiru, look at your family's situation now. You've been working so hard and now you're injured. Your Xiao Jian even went to buy chicken back. The market price of chicken is so high now. How are you going to survive if you don't know how to be thrifty at such a young age?" Chicken. Her own child only had a few mouthfuls of chicken all year round. Moreover, she could not return the money, so why was she eating chicken now? Chapter 25. In Qin Junlan's subconscious mind, her younger sister, Qin Yiru, should not have a better life than her since her family was not as well off. Moreover, she saw Yun Jian buying chicken to make soup for Qin Yiru. Moreover, Qin Yiru still owed her family money. Qin Yiru already said that she could not repay the debt, yet she still had the money to buy chicken? Qin Junlan felt even more indignant when she thought of this. "I bought the chicken to nourish my mother's body." Yun Jian glanced at the overbearing Qin Junlan. She disliked this nominal aunt even more. Therefore, she did not hesitate to chase her away. "My mother needs to rest. Let's talk another day." Yun Jian could feel that Qin Yiru must be feeling terrible right now. She was in trouble, her husband had not returned, and she owed a huge debt to the loan sharks. Now, her maternal family was here to visit her, but they were afraid that she would not acknowledge the loan and were here to collect the debt. In fact, Qin Yiru's heart had indeed turned cold. She just did not show it. Yiru is only slightly injured. Her hand is only injured, not crippled. We're all farmers. Who hasn't been injured before? Is there a need to make such a fuss? Qin Junlan might still speak to Qin Yiru with some sisterly affection, but her attitude was completely different when she spoke to Yun Jian. His words were harsh enough. On the one hand, she was indirectly saying that Qin Yiru was pretentious. On the other hand, she was scolding Yun Jian. After all, she was Qin Yiru's biological sister. Yun Jian could still hold back earlier and not attack her directly. However, after hearing Qin Junlan's words and seeing Qin Yiru's current state, she was bitterly disappointed. Qin Yiru held back her tears. Her disappointment was self-evident. Yun Jian did not attack her directly out of respect for Qin Yiru. However, at this point, Yun Jian would not be her if she continued to hold back. If someone like Qin Junlan, who liked to talk big, met her in her past life, she would have died 100 times over. "Since my mother's injuries are not serious, do you want to suffer the same injuries as her?" Yun Jian glanced at Qin Junlan from the corner of her eyes with a hint of murderous intent. "You? Very well, you actually dare to curse me?" It really made sense. Yiru, look at this child of yours. She's so ill-mannered that she even cursed her own aunt. What kind of future can a child like this have?" Qin Junlan had already decided to shed all pretense of cordiality. Hence, her words were getting more and more unpleasant. To Qin Junlan, her younger sister, Qin Yiru, was destined to be poor for the rest of her life after marrying a gambler for a husband. Yun Jian's results were a mess, not to mention her. She did not fall out with Qin Yiru's family because Yun Yi had been admitted to a key high school in the city. She thought that if Yun Yi became successful one day, she could help her own child. But now, with Qin Yiru's hand injured like this, Yun Yi might not even be able to afford the school fees if she continued to study in a key high school in the city. Hence, Qin Junlan did not care at all. Qin Yiru was even more disappointed after hearing Qin Junlan's words. She felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. This was her biological sister after all. How could she not be disappointed when she said such vicious words to her? Qin Yiru opened her mouth but no words came out. Her tears flowed down Qin Yiru's cheeks uncontrollably. Yun Jian did not hesitate when she saw this. Her sharp eyes glanced at the instigator, Qin Junlan. She suddenly reached out and grabbed the wooden stool closest to her. With a stomp of her foot, the sturdy wooden stool shattered into pieces. The loud sound made Qin Junlan and the rest take a few steps back in fear. Bam! Qin Junlan and the rest had never seen someone who could shatter a wooden stool with a single stomp. Shocked, they looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. The girl who had shattered a wooden stool with a single stomp looked at Qin Junlan and the rest. She pursed her lips and said sternly, "Get lost. If you don't, you'll end up like this wooden stool." Chapter 26. She was not joking. Qin Junlan and the rest felt their scalps go numb. They felt a chill run down their spines and a sense of fear crept into their hearts. The person who made them feel fear was none other than the frail girl standing before them. With a gulp, Qin Junlan swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It was obvious that she was shocked by what had just happened. Her eloquent and aggressive mouth did not open for a long time. Qin Yiru was also shocked by Yun Jian's action. Since when did her daughter have such strength in her legs? She could break a wooden stool with just one kick. "Why aren't you leaving?" She suddenly lowered her voice and it sounded eerily low, causing Qin Junlan and the rest to shudder again, unable to stand still. Qin Junlan was completely shocked. Moreover, Yun Jian's aura made her afraid. However, she could not afford to lose her face. Hence, Qin Junlan pushed the few people who came with her out of the ward. She continued to curse in an indifferent tone. "Oh my God! Why did the Qin family have such an unfilial daughter? She even wanted to kill her own aunt. What kind of person can she be?" After a round of cussing, she ran away. After Qin Junlan and the rest left, the ward finally quieted down. However, Qin Yiru's heart could not calm down. Yun Jian did not know how to comfort her, so she went over to place her hand on Qin Yiru's back and gave her a light pat. "Mom, don't be sad. You're living your life for yourself. You don't have to be sad for others." Yun Jian comforted Qin Yiru. It was the weekend. She was supposed to go back to school for self-study at night. However, Yun Jian had specially applied for leave. She knew that if she went back to school, there would be a fierce battle. Lin Mengyu was hospitalized because of her. Her father was the principal of Xinjiang Town High School. How could he let her off so easily? However, when had Yun Jian ever been afraid of anyone? Because of Qin Junlan and the rest's arrival tonight, Yun Jian was even more aware of her family's financial situation. In her previous life, when she was at the top of the world, the one thing she didn't lack was money. Usually, her starting price for a mission was no less than 10 million USD. But now that she had been reborn into the body of an ordinary middle school girl, she could feel that the life of an ordinary person was also full of trifles. But at the very least, he no longer needed to lick blood from the edge of a blade. It was Monday the next morning. Yun Jian applied for leave from her homeroom teacher as well. After sending Qin Yiru breakfast, she took the bus to Longmen City. She planned to make a trip to the city in advance. Her family was in need of money now. Not only did the loan sharks come to ask for money, but Qin Junlan also came to ask for money yesterday. Therefore, she wanted to go to the city to earn money in the fastest way. Using the pocket money Yun Yi forced on her before she went to school, she hailed a cab to the busiest area in Longmen City. Early in the morning, when the sun had just risen, Yun Jian, dressed in plain clothes with her hair tied in a high ponytail, walked along the busiest street in Longmen City, Chinatown. Chinatown was a street that could satisfy everyone's needs in the city. Here, it has everything you want to buy, and everything you need to use. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was heading straight for the only computer internet cafe in Chinatown. The internet cafe cost about 4 yuan an hour in this era. Yun Jian paid for an hour and went to the computer. It was said that she was not only the king of secret agents, but also a hacker expert. She could not find any other way to earn money quickly, so she planned to hack into systems to steal money. She did not plan to hack into any company's system though. She was confident that she could hack into any corporation in the shortest amount of time and completely destroy the finance department of any corporation, intercepting them halfway. However, this was illegal in Country Z. She did not want to be the first person to do so. Chapter 27. This force was secretly established by her. It belonged to the legitimate forces and was one of the top 10 multinational corporations in the world. Its total assets could not be measured by money. This had nothing to do with the kosher mercenaries. After all, one was in the light while the other was in the dark. This force was led by another one of her subordinates, a seductive woman with the code name Demon Girl. Yun Jian now had a new body and all the things that represented her identity were no longer in her hands. With her current appearance, it would be a little troublesome if she wanted to withdraw money from her own company directly. Now that she was in Z country, it was extremely inconvenient. Therefore, the fastest way was to use hacking skills to hack into the system and steal it directly. Yun Jian's hands moved freely on the keyboard and quickly operated the skillful program. She stared at the computer screen without blinking and locked on to the target IP address. After a series of steps, she finally chose between the yes and no options that popped up in the display box and pressed the spacebar. The whole process only took a few seconds. Yun Jian pursed her lips lightly until a line of clear English subtitles popped up on the screen. Hacker's intrusion. Theft complete. Yun Jian's nimble fingers just now attracted the attention of some young people who were playing computer games in the same internet cafe. At the same time, in a high-level office of a multinational corporation, an extremely seductive woman was sitting in front of her desk, playing with a black pen in her hand. She looked very relaxed. This person was Yun Jian's subordinate, codename Demon Girl. Ring ring ring. Beside her, the phone suddenly rang. Demon Girl picked up the phone and heard another anxious female voice from the phone. Chairman, it's bad. It's bad. The advanced defense system of the technical department has been hacked. The other party only took 30 seconds to hack into the system and stole $100 million from our company's finance department. What? The black pen in Demon Girl's hand fell to the ground. She stood up quickly and asked in an incredulous tone, "How is it possible?" Their company was one of the top 10 multinational corporations in the country, and their technical department was filled with elites from all over the world. Not to mention who could use hacking skills to hack into their company's technical system. Even the big shots on the international hacker list would find it difficult to hack into their company's advanced defense system. She only knew one person who could hack into it in 30 seconds. Country Z, Longmen City, in a smoky internet cafe. Yun Jian completely disrupted the tracking of those technical personnel who were conducting a reverse search on her. She had successfully transferred the $100 million into Qin Yiru's bank account. In order to prevent Qin Yiru from finding out about this shocking amount of money, she purposely stole the bank card from home today. However, she was probably the only person who could steal her own money since ancient times. Yun Jian turned off her computer. Just as she stood up from her seat, a surprised greeting came from behind her. "You're Yun Jian? Why are you here?" Yun Jian was stunned. She was already in Longmen City but she could still meet someone she knew? When he turned around, he saw a young man about 15 or 16 years old looking at him in surprise. "You are..." Yun Jian couldn't remember who this person was. Chapter 28. When Yun Jian heard Li Xiongyi's words, she had some impression of him and immediately replied, Although she was dissatisfied with Yuaning Jun and the others, it did not mean that she would transfer her emotions to others. Moreover, Li Xiongyi had never provoked her before. When he heard Yun Jian's reply, Li Xiongyi was inexplicably excited. The scene of Yun Jian strangling the cobra and killing it in front of everyone without batting an eyelid was still reflected in his mind. That look, that action, it was simply too cool. She was as cool as the martial arts masters in the movies. Therefore, when he saw Yun Jian now, Li Xiongyi practically treated her as his idol. Hee, Yun Jian, actually, ever since I saw you kill that cobra that day, I've been admiring you. I didn't expect to meet you here today. May I have the honor of treating you to a meal? Li Xiangyi was usually cheerful and joking, and it was the same when he spoke to Yun Jian. Actually, Li Xiangyi was not close to Yuan Yingjun and the others. Of course, his family was quite well off and no one dared to provoke him in Xinjiang town. Otherwise, he would not have played truant to play computer games in the city's internet cafe at the risk of being punished by the school. Usually, a rich young master like Li Xiangyi would scoff at someone like Yun Jian who did not have a good family background. However, Li Xiangyi did not. This surprised Yun Jian and improved her impression of Li Xiangyi. Yun Jian smiled faintly and shook her head. No, I'm going back to town soon. She still had to deliver lunch to Qin Yiru in the afternoon. Oh, all right then. Li Xiangyi could only nod with slight disappointment. Li Xiangyi, hurry up and come over. You're the only one left. The game is about to start and you're taking so long to go to the bathroom. Hurry up. Li Xiangyi's friend was calling him. Li Xiangyi scratched his head and said to Yun Jian in embarrassment, My friend is calling me to play a game. I'll go over first. See you next time. With that, he ran over. Yun Jian only felt that this young man was quite friendly, completely different from Yuan Yingjun's group. She didn't think too much about it. She walked out of the internet cafe and headed to the bank where the bank card was located. She had transferred $100 million into this bank card, which was more than 600 million renminbi. Yun Jian only took out 3 thick stacks of RMB, which amounted to 30,000 yuan. She wrapped them in a black bag and put them into her backpack. After all, if he obtained too much, it wouldn't be good to attract too much attention. She then took the city bus back to Xinjiang town. It wasn't lunchtime yet, so she wasn't in a hurry to go home. Instead, she went straight to Zhang Jifan's lair. Yun Jian was able to find Zhang Jifan and the others' lair directly. Naturally, she had a thorough understanding of this group of people. Zhang Jifan and the others had swindled a lot of money over the years because of their loan sharks. Their lair was the best house in Xinjiang town. Yun Jian went straight to their doorstep. At that moment, Zhang Jifan and the others were still playing mahjong. Win! It's over! Zhang Jifan had just finished the last mahjong tile in his hand when he saw the smiling girl standing not far away. He was so shocked that he immediately stood up from his seat. Brother Fan, what's wrong? Everyone asked and followed Zhang Jifan's gaze to Yun Jian. They saw Yun Jian walking over slowly. She opened her bag and took out a thick stack of cash and slammed it on the table. Chapter 29. F***CK. Watching as Yun Jian slammed the thick stack of cash on the mahjong table, everyone, including Zhang Jifan, was shocked for a few seconds before they cursed. 10,000 yuan. Although the people present were all loan sharks and had seen more money than this, 10,000 RMB was not a small amount. It was more or less shocking to see a 15-year-old girl throw it out. After all, Yun Jian's family was so poor that they could barely afford a meal. How could she have so much money? In other words, everyone was wondering where she had gotten the money from. Of course it's enough. Of course it's enough. Zhang Jifan was indeed the leader of the group. He was the first to react and put the money away, nodding with a chuckle. Not only was it enough, there was an extra 5,000 yuan. Yun Jian continued to smile, but it was not over yet. Reaching out, she took out another stack of cash from her bag and slammed it on the mahjong table again. Zhang Jifan had just put away the 10,000 yuan carefully when he saw Yun Jian tossing out another stack of cash. He was dumbfounded. What was she up to now? The 10,000 yuan just now was to pay off the debt. This 10,000 yuan is a greeting gift. Yun Jian smirked faintly and glanced at Zhang Jifan and the rest from the corner of her eyes before she said, Are you willing to work with me? I want to open a business in Longmen City. The details are still undecided, but I'll provide all the investment funds. You guys just have to manage it for me. Of course, the prerequisite is that you're not loan sharks anymore. She planned to open a business in Longmen City. Longmen City was a coastal area, one of the more rapidly developing cities in the country. It was convenient for trade and there was a lot of room for development. She would not miss such an opportunity to earn money. As for why she got Zhang Jifan to lead the group to manage it, it was not without reason. Zhang Jifan and the rest had offended her before, but they had not hurt her family. She could not find those softies who looked gentle but were easily led by the nose if she wanted to start a business. One had to admit that Zhang Zhifan knew when to advance and when to retreat. That day, he had brought a group of brothers to demand payment from her family. However, when he saw that her people had suffered a loss, he knew to retreat and quickly left. Instead of rushing forward blindly and insisting on fighting to the death, the fish dying and the net breaking. Just this point was in line with the behavior of a merchant. When it was time to advance, he would advance and never show weakness. If the opponent was too strong, he would show weakness when it was time to do so. Open a trading company? You're looking for us? No, we are just a group of hooligans who are King loan sharks. What do we know about business? Zhang Zhifan opened his mouth wide in surprise and looked at Yun Jian. Not only him, but Zhang Zhifan's group of people also looked at Yun Jian in shock. You don't understand, but I do. I can teach you. Who was born to be a businessman? Who was born to be able to walk and run? Instead of living your current life of fighting and killing, why don't you start a business with me? You can chase people to their homes to collect debts. What's the harm in starting a business with me? Yun Jian was still smiling and looking at Zhang Zhifan and the others with a smile. However, her words gave Zhang Zhifan and the others another shock. In fact, everyone here was not willing to be a loan shark. Which one of them was not short of money and had no choice but to do this kind of work that was despised by others? Just as Yun Jian said, what's the harm in giving it a try? They even dared to let loan sharks go and chase people to their homes to collect debts, risking being arrested by the police and going to jail. Okay. Since you've given us such a great gift, we'll follow you and give it a try. Zhang Zhifan clenched his fists and was silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, he laughed heartily and took the lead. They didn't need to pay for the investment. They just needed to send people over. This kind of business was a win-win situation. Moreover, to be able to take out 20,000 renminbi in just a few days, the girl in front of them was definitely not as simple as she looked. With Zhang Zhifan taking the lead, the group of people working under Zhang Zhifan all agreed. Yun Jian flashed a smile. Chapter 30. After the agreement was reached, Yun Jian went home to make lunch for Qin Yiru. She was going to start a business sooner or later, in the near future. After that, she had to make a trip to Longmen City and stay there for a while to settle these matters. The next morning was Tuesday morning. Yun Jian woke up early. She went out for a morning run and went to school with a few exercise books in her backpack before heading to school. She had only taken a day off, so she had to go to school today. Just as she arrived at the classroom door, she saw Lu Fian waving at her from her seat. Since it was not yet time for self-study, Lu Fian ran to Yun Jian when she saw her get down from her seat and asked, Xiao Jian, why didn't you come to school yesterday? The teacher said you were sick and asked for leave. Are you okay now? Why don't you rest more if you're not feeling well? Lu Fian's caring tone surprised Yun Jian. She recalled that she had asked for leave from her homeroom teacher yesterday because she was not feeling well. She did not expect that her casual request for leave would make Lu Fian worry for nothing. Yun Jian's heart warmed as she told Lu Fian, I'm fine. Your health is your capital. You have to take good care of yourself in the future. Lu Fian was obviously unaware of the series of events that happened in Yun Jian's home as she gestured to Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded and entered the classroom with Lu Fian, who knew that once Yun Jian entered the classroom, the rowdy classroom quieted down instantly. Yun Jian's back for class. I thought she didn't dare to come back. She's the one who beat up the principal's daughter, Lin Mingyu, and sent her to the hospital last Friday. One of Lin Mingyu's ribs was broken. In the classroom, a mischievous boy started to tease her. He spoke as if he knew everything about this matter and was a witness at that time. Students chimed in one after another. Wow, really? Yun Jian's become so awesome all of a sudden. TSK, Tisk, she's amazing. She even dared to hit the principal's daughter. This Yun Jian is doomed. She's asking for it. Who can she blame? No one knew about these things on Friday, but as time passed, there would always be people who would find out and brag about it. They did not even try to avoid suspicion in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian was nonchalant about it, but Lu Fian was enraged. Xiao Jian, don't be mad. They're just blabbermouths. Lu Fian comforted Yun Jian before she went up to them. Yun Jian, you guys, stop talking. It was Lin Mengyu who bullied Xiao Jian first that day. I can testify. PFT, you testify? Testify what? What's the point? Lin Mengyu's the principal's daughter. Sitting on the bench with his legs crossed, a ruffian-looking boy chuckled as he looked at Lu Fian and spat out a few words. Lu Fian was not a strong-willed person to begin with. She was infuriated at the scolding, but she did not know how to retort. Do you guys have nothing better to do? Just as the group of people pointed at Yun Jian noisily and hurled all sorts of insults, Yun Jian, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. Ah! Everyone present was stunned for a moment, unable to react. Very bored? Very lonely? Very empty? Yun Jian tossed out 3 words in a row before smirking. If so, you guys can continue chatting. I don't mind. Chapter 31. The group of students who had been whispering to each other to watch Yun Jian's drama turned sullen when they heard Yun Jian's words. When they first heard that Yun Jian had beaten up the arrogant and despotic Lin Mengyu and sent her to the hospital, they didn't believe it. Lin Mengyu was not only the daughter of the principal, but she was also the big sister in the 3rd year of junior high. She was very good at fighting. What about Yun Jian? In the past, Yun Jian was a snot-nosed person who didn't dare to make a sound in class. She didn't even dare to retaliate when people scolded her. She didn't even dare to fight. But now, not only did she beat up Lin Mengyu and send her to the hospital last Friday, she didn't run out crying like she used to when the whole class was gossiping about her. Instead, she blocked everyone's mouths the moment she spoke. Even her aura had changed. Yun Jian, why are you pretending in front of everyone when you're so capable? We're just gossiping about you. It's not like anything will happen. Do you have to be so calculative? Why can't you let everyone talk about what you've done? A tall girl who was about 1.75 meters tall stood out from the group. She raised her chin and looked at Yun Jian with a condescending gaze. This girl was called Mu Xiang. She wasn't very good-looking, but she was taller than the average boy. She was the sports committee member in the class, but she wasn't very popular with the boys. At the same time, she was most jealous of Yun Jian. Yun Jian wasn't very tall, but she had a pure and innocent face. It was the kind of face that people liked when they saw it. Her face was delicate and delicate. This was a stark contrast to Mu Xiang. Hence, in Yun Jian's original memory, Mu Xiang always thought of ways to bully her because she didn't like the original Yun Jian. After today's incident, Mu Xiang thought that she had caught Yun Jian red-handed, so she stood out to mock and ridicule her. Mu Xiang, can you be reasonable? You don't think I don't know. You're just jealous that Xiao Jian is prettier than you. That's why you keep picking on her. How shameless can you be? Lu Fian snapped before Yun Jian could, standing up for Yun Jian once again. Mu Xiang, whose thoughts were exposed, suddenly widened her eyes. She glared fiercely at Lu Fian and Yun Jian, refusing to accept the fact that she was uglier than Yun Jian. Scram! Who's jealous of her? Lu Fian, don't slander me. Speaking of which, what are you guys so proud of? The teacher will be coming to look for you later. You even dared to hit the principal's daughter. I'll just wait for you guys to cry. Humph. Mu Xiang cursed several times in a row. The students in the class watched this fierce battle, but no one stepped forward to interfere. On the contrary, most of the students were waiting to watch the show. Of course, Mu Xiang was famous for being difficult to deal with in their class. She even learned Taekwondo before. She was even better than Lin Mengyu, the girl who often got into fights. Judging by the situation, they were going to fight. The students were curious to know who was stronger between Yun Jian and Mu Xiang, who had sent Lin Mengyu to the hospital. Do you know why I hit Lin Mengyu? Yun Jian asked Mu Xiang as she crossed her arms and looked at everyone coldly, her gaze locked on her. Everyone froze again. Mu Xiang and Lu Fian, who were flushed from their quarrel, were stunned when they heard what Yun Jian said. Yun Jian continued to speak to Mu Xiang, because she's just like you. She looks like she deserves a beating. There was silence all around. Everyone was dumbfounded. Chapter 32. Mu Xiang was taken aback as well before she realized that Yun Jian was insulting her in a roundabout way. She pointed at Yun Jian and yelled, "You're the one who deserves a beating. Yun Jian, don't think you're so great just because you beat Lin Mengyu up. I'm telling you, if it weren't for the punishment for fighting in school, I'd beat you up so hard you can't even stand up." As she spoke, Mu Xiang rolled up her sleeves to show off her authority. She was someone who practiced taekwondo. Fighting had always been one of Mu Xiang's proudest skills. She had been learning taekwondo since elementary school and was now a blue and red belt martial artist. It was not a high level, but Mu Xiang was confident she could go up against Yun Jian. Yun Jian smirked, thinking that Mu Xiang was a spoiled brat who had yet to grow up. She turned and ignored Mu Xiang, gesturing for Lu Fian to go back to her seat. If they continued arguing, there would be no end to it. She had no time for that. "Yun Jian, you're scared, aren't you?" "Humph, I'm telling you, we're enemies today. Just you wait." Mu Xiang threatened Yun Jian from behind when she saw that Yun Jian was ignoring her. "I'll be waiting." Yun Jian was already back in her seat. She turned her head and flashed a witty smile. Those who wanted her dead ranged from international assassins and secret agents to government officials. Since when was she afraid of anyone? What was more, it was just a threat from a junior high school girl. The morning went by amidst the sound of studying. The teachers took turns to teach, but none of them came to talk to her about Yun Jian beating Lin Mengyu up last Friday. Yun Jian found it odd as well. During the afternoon's PE class and free time, Yun Jian and Lu Fian sat alone on a patch of grass and watched the kids play around in the field. "Xiao Jian, we're in our 3rd year of junior high now. The midterms are coming up. Have you thought about which high school you want to go to?" Lu Fian asked as she stirred the soil on the lawn with a withered root in her hand out of boredom. "Longmen City First High School," Yun Jian answered. Longmen City's first high school was the top public high school in the city. It was also the school where her elder brother, Yun Yi, studied. Therefore, Yun Jian also planned to study there. Lu Fian's eyes widened when she heard what Yun Jian said. "It's DE Senior High School. That's the best high school in our city. The cutoff is really high. There might only be 1 or 2 places in our school who can go up. Xiao Jian you." It was not that Lu Fian looked down on Yun Jian, but before this, Yun Jian's grades were really not good. It was very difficult to even be ranked within the top 100 in the entire grade. In a key high school, only the top few students in the grade had a chance to fight for it. "I'll get in. Don't we still have a year to study?" Yun Jian's long lashes fluttered as she smiled. She had already grasped the learning progress of junior high school in her previous life effortlessly. "Hey, Yun Jian, are you guys having PE today too?" Just as Yun Jian and Lu Fian were chatting enthusiastically, a familiar male voice cut in. Yun Jian turned and saw Li Xiangyi, who she had just met yesterday morning, standing in front of her and Lu Fian. He was even holding a basketball in his hand, obviously out to play. Chapter 33. MN. Yun Jian nodded. Their class was indeed physical education. "Whoa, Xiao Jian, you guys know each other." Lu Fian was surprised as she looked at Yun Jian and Li Xiangyi. "We've met twice," Yun Jian explained to Lu Fian. "Oh," Lu Fian replied with a nod. Li Xiangyi scratched his head out of habit and raised the basketball in his hand shyly. The weather's pretty nice today, so we're out to practice basketball." "Oh, Yun Jian, do you know how to play basketball?" Actually, it was an idiotic question to ask a girl if she knew how to play basketball. One of Li Xiangyi's buddies who stood beside him clapped Li Xiangyi's shoulder and chuckled. "I say, Li Xiangyi, isn't your question a waste of time? When girls play basketball, the most they can do is hit the ball twice and shoot a basket. They can't play a basketball game. Do you want to invite this girl to join our basketball team?" Li Xiangyi chuckled awkwardly and kept his gaze on Yun Jian. They were going to have a basketball match in a few days. It was a friendly match between their school and another school's students. One of their team members was injured and would not be able to participate in the match that day. It was unrealistic to look for another member since there were only a handful of people who knew how to play basketball. It was unfair to them that they could not play basketball with another school with one less person. Therefore, when they saw Yun Jian today, They were reminded of the scene where she killed Lin's senator. If Yunjian knew how to play basketball with such agility and could join their team, would their chances of winning not be higher? Of course, Li Xiangyi was not sure if Yunjian knew how to play basketball. Yunjian nodded with a smile under everyone's gaze. I know a little. She knew a little about basketball. Shooting was like using various darts and blades when she killed someone. It was just that basketball was bigger and simpler in comparison. Oh, Xiao Jian, you know how to play basketball? Why didn't I know? Lu Fian exclaimed in surprise. I learned it from my brother, so I naturally know a little. Yun Jian lied without blinking an eye. That won't do either. The guy who was standing next to Li Xiangyi said again. He paused and turned to Li Xiangyi. With a serious tone he said, It's not realistic to let a girl join our basketball team and compete with the boys from other schools. Can she even shoot the ball? Even if he goes, he will only drag our team down. Li Xiangyi, let me tell you, I will be the first to disagree with this. Don't even think about it. The boy who retorted was Li Xiangyi's buddy, Wu Kuei. He was also a member of Xinjiang Town Junior High School's basketball team. Listening to Li Xiangyi and Wu Kuei's conversation, Yun Jian could tell that Li Xiangyi wanted her to join the basketball team. However, from Wu Kuei's tone, he could tell that other than Li Xiangyi, no one else thought that he knew how to play basketball. Not to mention a basketball, even if she was given a needle, she could stand far away and stab a person's fatal point and kill them. Compared to that, basketball was nothing. You want me to join your basketball team, right? Yun Jian turned to look at Li Xiangyi. Li Xiangyi was stunned. He nodded blankly. Yes. All right. I agree. Yun Jian pursed her lips and smiled like a spring breeze. Wait, we haven't agreed yet. She doesn't have the right to participate in the basketball game with us. When Wu Kuei saw that Yun Jian did not know how to appreciate his kindness and actually took the initiative to say something like that, he immediately stood up and strongly disagreed. Who wanted her to join their basketball team? Did they agree? Just as Wu Kuei finished speaking, Yun Jian suddenly stood up from the lawn and hooked the basketball from Li Xiangyi's hand into her own. What happened next gave everyone a new shock. Yun Jian held the basketball with both hands and threw it into the air. The basketball followed its trajectory and flew toward the basketball hoop 30 to 40 meters away. It drew a perfect arc in the air. Soon, the basketball was in the basket. The basketball hoop 30 to 40 meters away, which was the size of a basketball court, was thrown from there. Yun Jian actually made the shot. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Oh my God! Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Chapter 34. At this moment, not only Li Xiangyi, Wu Kuei, and the others, but even Lu Fian widened her beautiful eyes and looked at Yun Jian anxiously. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Wu Kuei, who had just spoken rudely, suddenly felt as if he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face. However, he had initially been thinking for the sake of their basketball team. However, seeing such a scene, no one could say anything else. Shooting a basketball from a distance of 30 to 40 meters into the basketball hoop on the field was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Sorry, my tone was too strong just now. Wu Kuei was also a flexible person. He smiled embarrassedly and apologized to Yun Jian. Then, he sincerely continued, Let me formally introduce myself. I am the vice captain of our school's basketball team. My name is Wu Kuei. The captain himself is not here, but I can represent all the members of our basketball team to invite you to join our basketball team. I wonder if you would do me the honor of joining our team? Wu Kuei's attitude immediately took a 360-degree turn. Everyone had seen Yun Jian's performance just now. At this moment, those who were extremely against Li Xiangyi inviting Yun Jian to join the basketball team also had a change of heart. Yun Jian looked at him and smiled. Her beautiful eyebrows curved. Okay, I'll join. What she lacked in her previous life was the life of an ordinary person. Therefore, in her second life, living in a school, she had to experience it. When Yun Jian agreed, the members of the basketball team also breathed a sigh of relief. They did not expect the girl that Li Xiangyi knew to be so capable. Just now, she had only come over to say hello, and the annoying problem of having one less person on the team to participate in the basketball game was solved. Wu Kuei's view of Yun Jian also changed greatly. Just now, He treated her with such an attitude. Not only did she not deliberately make things difficult for him, but she was also generous and not reserved. This kind of girl was really different from the rest. Welcome to the team. Wu Kuei represented all the members of the basketball team to express a sincere welcome to Yun Jian. Okay. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and moved her lips. Even Yun Jian didn't expect that she would join a basketball team after attending a physical education class. Lu Fian was even more surprised than Yun Jian herself. She kept talking to Yun Jian all day long. She looked even more excited than Yun Jian. Xiao Jian, you're amazing. He's going to represent our school in the basketball match. As long as the day of the competition is a holiday, I will definitely cheer for you. Lu Fian had been nagging Yun Jian for almost the entire afternoon. Although Yun Jian was annoyed, she was also gratified. She had friends now. She was no longer the killing machine of the organization. It was a pity that she was able to live such a peaceful life, but her brother would never come back. At 8 o'clock in the evening self-study session ended and school was dismissed on time. Yun Jian carried her school bag and walked in the opposite direction from Lu Fian. She was going to the health center to look for Qin Yiru. The health center was coincidentally in the opposite direction from Lu Fian and Yun Jian's house. After bidding Lu Fian a quick farewell after school, Yun Jian walked alone in the dark alley. This alley was the closest path to the health center. It was also the darkest, so no one dared to walk alone. Yun Jian's steady pace was brisk. When she reached the intersection of the alley, Yun Jian stopped abruptly and leaned her back against the wall of a thatched cottage. She chuckled at the dark spot she had just walked from. Come out. How long are you planning to follow me? Someone was following her and the stalker's skill was mediocre. At least, she had noticed it right from the start. Chapter 35. The hooligans who were hiding in the dark panicked, not expecting Yun Jian to discover them so easily. In spite of it, they stopped hiding and stood out at once. Yun Jian caught a glimpse of Mu Xiang, who stood among the hooligans and was taller than the rest of the men. It was her? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Humph. Yun Jian, you didn't expect this, did you? How dare you talk to me like that during the day? If I don't teach you a lesson today, my surname isn't Mu. Mu Xiang stood with her arms akimbo, growing more jealous as she stared at Yun Jian's alluring face. Mu Xiang turned around and spoke to a man in his 30s. As she spoke, her entire body was almost pressed against the man's body. Brother Hu, it's her. She was the one who bullied me during the day. Brother Hu, you have to take revenge for your sister Xiang. Hearing Mu Xiang calling herself Sister Xiang, Yun Jian felt goosebumps all over her body. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, curious to see how these people would deal with her. The man who was addressed as Brother Hu hugged Mu Xiang and slapped her butt twice with his fat hand, smirking. As you wish, as you wish. Do whatever you want today. Receiving Brother Hu's promise, Mu Xiang raised her chin arrogantly and peeked at Yun Jian from the corner of her eye. Brother Hu was from Xinjiang Town's underground black market. Other places aside, in Xinjiang Town, he was a big shot with a lot of influence. He was a member of Longmen City's underground black market, Dragon Head Gang. After hooking up with Brother Hu, Mu Xiang felt that her aura was different from before. Really? Mu Xiang asked coquettishly, playing hard to get. She then looked at Yun Jian differently and said fiercely, then I'm going to ruin her innocence. She's usually so arrogant, seducing the boys in our school every day with that look. Brother Hu, get your brothers to take turns with her. Let's see if she can still be so arrogant in the future. Mu Xiang was even more ruthless than Lin Mingyu. Yun Jian curled her lips coldly. If she was just an ordinary girl today, she would probably have understood Mu Xiang's intentions. Ruining her chastity. If an ordinary junior high school student's chastity was ruined, she would probably live in the shadows for the rest of her life. She would also have to endure the strange gazes of the people around her. Her life would be ruined. Unfortunately, Yun Jian was not an ordinary person. Mu Xiang's wishful thinking was about to fail. He, that's a good idea. Brother Hu chuckled. He pushed Mu Xiang aside and walked towards Yun Jian. Then let me, Brother Hu, go first. Such a good thing. How could he let his group of little brothers go first? Moreover, this girl was much prettier than Mu Xiang. Who knows? She might even be a virgin. Mu Xiang was pushed away mercilessly. She hated Yun Jian even more. But when she thought about how this little b*tch Yun Jian was going to be ruined, she felt an indescribable joy in her heart. Yun Jian's gaze gradually turned cold. She watched coldly as Brother Hu's fat body approached her. Just as she was about to beat the whole group of people to the ground, her sharp senses suddenly detected a trace of abnormality. Tisk! A soft sound traveled into her ears. That sound could not be any softer. If one was not a secret agent, an ordinary person would not be able to hear it. And this was the sound that Yun Jian was most familiar with. It was the sound of a silenced pistol. There were people nearby. Yun Jian suddenly ran towards the dead end of the alley. On the left side of the intersection, she ran in the direction of the sound of the silenced pistol. Her speed was extremely fast. Brother Hu and the rest were just about to surround Yun Jian when they saw Yun Jian running ahead. At that moment, they thought that Yun Jian was running away. She's running away. Chase after her. Mu Xiang shouted as she pointed in the direction that Yun Jian had run. Chapter 36. Yun Jian's running speed was not something that Brother Tiger and the rest could catch up to. In the blink of an eye, she had left Brother Tiger and the rest far behind. Following the direction of the silenced pistol's swoosh, Yun Jian quickly arrived at the other end of the alley. She flashed to the corner of the wall and peeked out with one eye to see the commotion. The first thing she saw was a middle-aged man lying at the entrance of the alley. He was covered in blood and was clearly dead. Yun Jian concluded that the gunshot had killed the middle-aged man. Looking forward, she saw a woman in a flirtatious red robe standing in front of her. The woman was also covered in wounds and looked battered and exhausted, but she was protecting the thing in her arms with all her might. In front of the woman stood 3 men in their 20s. The man in the middle was about 19 or 20 years old, but he was the most outstanding of the 3. This man had a clean and fair face with sharp edges and cold handsomeness. His sharp nose looked as if it had been carved by a knife. Yun Jian could see that the 2 men beside him were centered around him. It was not an exaggeration to use the word handsome to describe this man. It was also Yun Jian's first time seeing a man who could perfectly combine handsomeness and beauty. She could not help but take a few more glances at him. Enchantress, hand over the thing in your arms or we'll kill you right now. The other man standing beside the handsome man shouted at the woman in the flirtatious red robe after receiving the handsome man's silent approval. Yun Jian suddenly raised her brows when she heard the woman in the flirtatious red robe address her. Enchantress, this name was not unfamiliar to her. Enchantress was the 10th special agent on the special agent ranking. It was said that this person liked wearing flirtatious red robes all year round. She was enchanting and lustful. She did not expect to meet her in a small place like Xinjiang town. Before Yun Jian could think further, the woman with the code name Enchantress laughed out loud. She looked at the 3 men and said in a cruel voice, "Dream on! It wasn't easy for this old lady to obtain this thing, so how could I just give it to you like this? Young master, this damned bitch doesn't know what's good for her. Why don't we kill her and snatch her things?" Another man beside the handsome man who looked more irritable licked his lips and asked. Of course, the decision-making power was still in the hands of the handsome man who was called the young master. This handsome man was not as old as the other 2, but his eyes were deep. Even Yun Jian could not tell what he was thinking at this moment. Kill. Pursing his lips, the handsome man spat out a single word. His magnetic voice carried a trace of ruthlessness. Not long after she finished speaking, she suddenly felt a change. The 3 men present, including the ever-vigilant Enchantress, all sensed something. They all looked behind the wall where Yun Jian was hiding. Yun Jian's level of concealment was enough to follow these people without being discovered, but the people present all looked at her. It wasn't that her whereabouts had been exposed, but... Chase them! Chase them! That shameless little bitch Yun Jian can't have gotten far. Yun Jian's eyes dimmed when she heard Mu Xiang's shrill voice coming from behind her from afar. After hearing that voice, Yun Jian did not plan to continue hiding her whereabouts. She stepped out from behind the wall, but the people present were stunned. When did someone hide here without them noticing? The handsome man narrowed his almond-shaped eyes. His sharp gaze coincidentally met with Yun Jian's. Yun Jian, let's see where you can run to now. Ah, ah, die, die, die. You're dead. At this moment, Mu Xiang, Brother Hu, and the rest arrived. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.